And W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan. Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
All the respect in the world for them, and they handled us rather easily in the preseason, to be honest with you.
TJ Watt out. The Bills are a significantly better football team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Bills, they should win by double digits.
I would expect it to be a relatively tough game. Honestly, I think they're going to win, but I wouldn't expect an easy one. I don't think anything is easy at this time.
Mike Danger.
You can't lose to Mason Rudolph at home in the playoffs. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Bills win that game just based on better quarterback, more talent, obviously better team, right? But I don't know that it's by 2 scores.
Gene Battaglia.
My concern, I'll say it right off the bat, and what is the great equalizer in football? It's the weather. Who knows what can happen, Danger, if things kind of get mucked up there. So, yeah, this is not a layup, so speaking. It's the Steelers coming up.
Michigan National Championship.
Oh, who cares?
We're innocent.
Seeding works.
On to the Sabres.
Hey, Seattle.
The booing is okay. It just means you're hockey ready.
Let's go, Amherst.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Whoa. Did the Dandalorian call the College Football National Championship a Francesa?
Oh, who cares?
That's the College Football National Championship, my dude. That's not a Francesa. That's a big deal. It's a big deal that Michigan won their first title since, 97?
The game itself may be a Francesa. It did not have any suspense. Never once did I think Michigan was in danger in that game.
Late in the game, there was still a little bit hanging in the balance. You had a big play to Roma Dunze, who I love, that got called back because of a penalty. And that was at that point that I'm like, yeah, probably not going to happen for the Huskies tonight. Didn't feel like it. And yeah, Michigan, for the most part, had total control of that game. That first quarter was unfortunate for Washington's defense, giving up as much as they gave up early on, and were never really able to claw out of that hole that they dug for themselves. But to call it a Francesa, Dandalorian, just bold to call the national championship in college football a big who cares. Well, it's done, and Michigan gets the win, and now we wait and see what the next move for Jim Harbaugh is. Wondering if Michael Penix lost any draft stock with last night's performance. I mean, look, it was a gutty performance. You could tell he wasn't 100% down the stretch of that game, but is he sliding from the first round to the second round because he couldn't close out Michigan? I don't know. It'll be fun to watch what happens here over the course of the next couple, the aftermath of Michigan winning their college football national championship.
Those players off today, but
there you go.
It was Pittsburgh today. Getting from, we learned today that Mason Rudolph will be QB1. Okay. I want to get in a quick. Normally we don't do calls, but we like Justin to run it quick. He's got to go to work. He's got a good point.
We do calls. We just
not right off the top though. No. Justin, what's going on, buddy?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Just real quick about the Bills. What I'm worried about is not losing to Mason Rudolph. It's losing to Mike Tomlin and that running game. We always seem to stick in nickel and dime, and I feel like Miami would have kept running the ball. I know we did a better job in the second half, but I feel like if they had stuck with it, they probably would have taken that.
No, we lost Justin. All right. Sorry, Justin. Yeah, look, you can be nervous about Mike Tomlin. Sean McDermott talking earlier, not earlier today, this is, I believe, from yesterday, on Mike Tomlin and Tomlin coach teams in general.
They're extremely resilient. I think just he puts a lot on his leadership group, it appears, from the outside at least, and he has some veteran players on this team and talented veteran players, and so I think that's really what you see when you watch his teams play over the years.
And how impressive is it? Like he's never had a losing record in the NFL. I mean, do you marvel at that statistic, and what do you make of it?
I do. He's one of the best coaches in the league, and I believe that. And he's been at this for a long time. Won a Super Bowl, and to your point, that he's been able to sustain success over a number of years.
Lots of respect between these two guys. We didn't do a McDermott McLaws on that one. I mean, there's hard to come up with, when he's heaping praise on Mike Tomlin, I think that's probably genuine.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the Mason Rudolph 30-second soundbite tomorrow where they just pour it on about the Steelers. Justin brings up a point, though. Jaylen Warren, if you had to design the way the Steelers would win this game, that's it, right?
That's any game. I mean, when you talk about a physical style of play, like the Bills did to the Cowboys a few weeks ago, or even a little bit against Miami. Miami's a finesse team. You out-physical them, you're going to win the game. Now, you referenced that preseason game, Sean McDermott referencing the preseason game where they got whooped. I mean, look, that was the preseason, and the Bills didn't really show up. They kind of took that day off. And so much so that if I remember correctly, their poor performance in that preseason game forced them to play in the next preseason game a little bit more than Sean McDermott probably wanted.
Yeah, the game in Chicago, correct.
Right. And so, but that was born of a physical style of play that the Bills just couldn't match. If you can get physical, any team can come in and beat the Buffalo Bills. And Pittsburgh's a physical team. They've always been a physical team. I'm not worried about I'd be more worried about Devon Achane than I would be about Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, well, it just goes to what Mike McDaniel, what was he thinking the other night there, basically, with you had Achane working in the first half, and then you abandoned it. Why? Because the Bills stopped it a couple times?
He's a cerebral coach, and he probably outsmarted himself. He probably just outsmarted himself and wasn't able to make the adjustments that the Bills were able to make. Bills making defensive adjustments. This was the same thing week 4. For whatever you want to think about Sean McDermott, the head coach, his 2 games against Miami this year were fantastic. And it speaks to a gap in his experience as a defensive coordinator and a head coach versus McDaniel's lack of experience as an offensive play caller and a head coach. Because if I'm not mistaken, McDaniel was never the play caller in San Francisco. I don't think he was ever the offensive coordinator.
No, he was never. He's just the run game coordinator.
Right. So you come into this situation and look, he's still learning. He's done a good job in a short amount of time, and the Dolphins are in the conversation. They're a playoff team for 2 years in a row. I mean, that's all great. But in those moments, Sean McDermott has absolutely outclassed Mike McDaniel. Can he do it against Mike Tomlin? Different story. I mean, it was last year that the Bills absolutely throttled Pittsburgh. Similar kind of situation, right? I believe T.J. Watt was out in that game as well.
Yeah, their safety, Fitzpatrick, I remember he was on one wheel, and that led to a long Gabe Davis touchdown. Yep. So it's not something you can automatically pencil in. I know we have a lot of Steeler fans listening, and the Bills are the team in the NFL that can beat anybody. And as evident by losing to New England, they could also lose to anybody. Next on the list, the Pittsburgh Steelers, honestly. And yes, Baltimore, division rival, those games they beat Baltimore twice. Beat them twice. So if that doesn't get you to sit up straight here a little bit in Buffalo this week, you've got to put in a good week of work during practice.
Well, I tell you, we came out the gates flashing strong here in the sports bar this afternoon, taking calls at 866-4326. We didn't even set the table. What kind of hosts are we? Let's set the table for you here with a great afternoon of sports talk ahead here from the studios at High Falls in downtown Rochester, 95.7 FM and AM 950. We appreciate you checking us out on the video stream as well. We're up at The Fan Rochester on YouTube, our channel on YouTube, and also on Twitch at The Fan Rochester, and in the free-to-download Odyssey app as always. We will talk Amerks hockey later this afternoon with head coach Seth Appert.
The one and only time this year the Amerks get on a plane, and that would be to Charlotte coming up, where Friday night they take on the Checkers in, is it Bojangles Arena? Whatever arena they play in. But Saturday, downtown Charlotte, that's going to be the outdoor game. Don Stevens will have the call Saturday night here on the Fan Rochester. So interesting week ahead here for the Amerks. You have an NHL goalie on the roster now, and Eric Comrie. How long will this last? I listened to his comments Friday night on my way back from the RT game, and I mean, Comrie said all the right things. He seems to have a positive mindset. We'll let Seth kind of explain where his team is at here. Seth Appert, head coach of the Rochester Americans, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
And we'll talk some more Bills and Steelers later this hour, about 15 minutes or so from now. As he does every Tuesday afternoon, Matt Perino from the Syracuse Post-Standard will be joining us.
Let's give Matt some credit because there's been a lot of receipts, right? And the Bills did this themselves. Like, hey, the Bills are out. Everything else is when they were 6-6. Matt, after that Kansas City win, actually predicted the Bills would win out and take the division. And this is exactly what happened here. So the Buffalo Bills, who have not lost since the month of November. We'll talk to Matt Perino coming up here in about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open. You can join us anytime. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. The new location, 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
Yeah, so the coaching carousel continuing today, and I think this one you can file under a little bit of a surprise because I don't fault this coach for what happened this year because I look at their quarterback situation and just look at the talent. I'm like, no one thought the Tennessee Titans were going to go anywhere this year, even in that division. Yet, Mike Vrabel got fired today. Diana Rossini from The Athletic is actually reporting that there was chatter that the Titans would try to trade Mike Vrabel to New England, but it would take too long and too messy, so they just decided to fire him anyways.
And that'll only increase the chatter of Vrabel to New England if they indeed move on from Bill Belichick at some point. This wasn't that surprising to me, actually. I know that he's a good head coach, and he's established himself as a good head coach. And whatever team he's coaching for next season, will be paying attention to that. But what made it not surprising to me is just what we know about Vrabel, the man, the personality of Mike Vrabel. He's a stubborn guy. And I imagine through the years, and I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong, but I imagine that through the years, mistakes have been made within that organization. Moves have been made that Vrabel probably, certainly didn't agree with. Trading A.J. Brown, drafting Malik Willis, not adding, they added DeAndre Hopkins because that's the kind of guy that Mike Vrabel believes can win you football games. But they didn't want to do that. I mean, like there's a disconnect between coach and GM, how the GM is building the team versus what the coach actually wants, players that are getting drafted that the coach doesn't have any interest in. And I imagine just from the body language, just from the comments we hear from Mike Vrabel, that he's a stubborn, pig-headed, my way or the highway kind of guy. A lot of football coaches are that way. Arrogant, stubborn, won't give in. I know more than everybody else. Well, when you're working with a general manager, you can have your disagreements but you have to find a way to work together. You have to find a common ground. You have to find harmony. And it sounds as if, or it feels to me as if that was probably it. That Vrabel and the GM just didn't see eye to eye on the direction of the team. I mean, let's face it. You could have gotten a haul of draft picks if you move on from Derrick Henry before the season starts, if you trade Ryan Tannehill before the season starts. I mean, there's a lot of players on that team. If you're going to trade A.J. Brown, there's more that you could do if you want to rebuild, and he wasn't able to do that. Wasn't willing to do that.
Or the question is, we don't know what is between the GM, the new GM, and Vrabel, and that's probably what this is. When the other guy got fired, they hired a guy named Rand Carthen, came over from the Niners as the player personnel guy. And Vrabel's not Carthen's hire. So now Carthen gets to really put his thumbprint on this team. So I guess from that respect, Danger, when you don't kind of line it up, like the Bills are lined up here.
Yeah.
Bean and McDermott, that's the way you want it. And for anyone that says that Vrabel to New England, I'd say good, 2 thumbs up, because the way I think it should be done is you hire the GM first, who then hires his head coach, not the other way around. Yes, it worked out that way in Buffalo because already McDermott and Bean had that relationship. My point is, if you're going to hire Vrabel in New England, who exactly is going to be the GM? Who makes those decisions? Can't be Mike Vrabel. Like, it's certainly not going to be Bill Belichick. Well, I don't see Bill Belichick saying, you know what, I'll be the GM.
How good of a salesman is Mike Vrabel? Because Mike Vrabel, I'm sure, wanted that kind of control, being that he was as vocal as he was, trying to, be involved in player and personnel and trying to get, his team get the players for his team in a mold that he wanted, and always kind of went head to head with management, with the GM and the player personnel guys. Can he go in to the Crafts and say, I'm next? I can be what Belichick was all these years. I can be your GM, and I can be your head coach. I wouldn't take that leap of faith if I was the Crafts.
No, I think if Vrabel were smart, he would interview for the job, and he's got an inside track. He's in the Patriot Hall of Fame. He's got that red blazer, they come out in there. Yeah. Robert Kraft kind of viewed Tom Brady as almost a son, and I think Vrabel is in that same vein. So Vrabel to New England, honestly, if you had to say yes or no, I think it happens. But are they going to do it the right way, meaning you need a full-time GM there? It can't be the same thing that's been going on there.
Yeah, and back to Tennessee, we say this all the time, dysfunction starts at the top. And Tennessee's a dysfunctional organization. Vrabel kind of hid the dysfunction for a while there, and you were able to win games and get into the postseason and upset Baltimore one year, as Baltimore was the 1 seed that 1 year. You were able to get some big wins, but ultimately you have a dysfunctional ownership. You have an ownership now that's siding with a new GM rather than trying to make this work. And if they're not seeing eye to eye, you're out of here. We're going to go our direction. You go yours. The frustration just look. I would have left after you traded AJ Brown. I would have been. I give Vrabel credit for being that patient, for sticking it out for another couple of seasons after they said, you know what we need to do? Let's move on from AJ Brown. Let's trade AJ Brown.
We don't want to pay AJ Brown.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. That wasn't a Vrabel decision. So you can't really blame him for a lot of what's gone on with the Titans. We could have the debate about whether or not we think Vrabel is a good head coach. I'm not really sure that I know that he's a good head coach. I don't like the body language. I mean, a lot of times he's got a lot of that Josh McDaniel kind of always pouty, just always kind of looks like he's in a sour mood. Like,
why are you so pissy?
What's wrong? I know that you're a competitor. You're a football guy. You want to run through a wall. But even Dan Campbell has like a different kind of body language. Like you're a tough guy, we get it. But Vrabel just seems a little bit whiny, a little childish sometimes.
Well, and he also has the benefit of working in Nashville, not exactly a tough media market, let's be honest. It's an entertainment town, and if you poll people, probably college football is much bigger there in Nashville. So Vrabel, if he wants to go back to New England or whoever else will give him a job, he'll have to face much tougher media scrutiny. So, yeah, you think it's not a surprise? I think it's a little bit of a surprise because where do the Titans go? Probably some no-name coordinator, right?
Yeah, and we can look at this day and say, like, all right, they made a mistake. I mean, how many times in our lives have your favorite team moved on from a coach prematurely, and you look back and you're like, that was a mistake. It's going to take a long time for them to recover from that mistake.
Well, you have to ask the question: is Will Levis the guy or not? It's too soon to tell, but there's something there that you want to explore it. Like next year should be exciting. So what should happen, Danger? It's like the full court press for Ben Johnson or anybody else. Hey, come work with this quarterback. Can you work with this quarterback? And whenever you put a quarterback through multiple coordinators and systems, that's the dangerous part here. Yeah. Like you're going to turn the page here and like he's got to learn a whole new system.
There's so many scenarios that can play out between now and the draft, right? Like we could find out between now and the draft that Will Levis won't be the quarterback in Tennessee next year, that they trade for somebody, or any of these openings change dramatically if you have a quarterback change. What's going on with Kirk Cousins? What are the Raiders going to do? Like there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of dominoes that need to fall. But I would imagine that, that's probably prerequisite number one. Can you work with Will Levis if you're an incoming head coach into the Tennessee Titans organization? I don't think they're recovering from this anytime. I think this move solidifies that the Titans are going to be a sub-500 team for at least the next couple of seasons.
Which probably from a business standpoint is fine. When is their new dome open?
Yeah, they've already got their money.
Yeah, they got their money. So like we're like, you need to sell the new stadium. Who's you're watching that game on Sunday. Like you realize Ooh, that stadium is outdated.
There was nobody there
No.
either. I mean, like also like poorly attended for a game where, hey, if you hate your division rival, you're going to that game to watch them beat them and knock them out of the postseason. They did. I'll give them credit. They did what my Bears couldn't do at Lambeau.
Did you see there were Steeler fans there that were just in Steeler gear cheering on? Now, here's a funny story, and this involves a sports bar regular. So, Joey Kipchoge, Joey Whalen. So he's in the U.S. Olympic trials for the marathon. He's going to do one tune-up. Well, the race is in Houston this week. So his fiancée, Monica, she's going to go down there, but he's not going out to the game. You got to get your rest the night before everything else. She's going to go to just for fun, the Texans-Browns game.
Oh, nice.
By herself and wear Bills gear. So, like, it's like people are like, wait, what? What is going on here? Like, that's the fun thing. Have you ever done I'm going to a pro sporting event by yourself?
I have. It was called the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't wear a different team's jersey though. Like that's a bold move. I don't know that I would do that. Okay, you're going to the Sabres game tonight. It's the Sabres and the Kraken. I'm not rolling up with a Montreal Canadiens jersey or my Blackhawks jersey or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like that is bold.
That would be very, very bold. I don't know if it's a Josh Allen jersey, but going there. So if you're watching the game on Saturday, Texans and Browns, and you see a woman in Bills gear, like what? Just by herself, like what is that?
You know the power move, the move that has yet to be replicated. We've only seen it once, and it was executed by a celebrity during the postseason a couple of years ago. And since it's happened, we haven't seen it.
Oh,
since.
the Rob Lowe move!
What a move!
Yeah,
what a power move! I'm just wearing an NFL hat. I'm not wearing a jersey. I'm not repping a team. I'm repping the league. I'm repping the NFL with an NFL hat. That's a power move. Rob Lowe, respect. Gotta love that move. Yeah, good for Monica. Good. She'll have a blast going to that game. And wearing Bills gear to a Texans-Browns game.
So,
you're in their kitchen, Monica. That's bold. I like it.
Yeah. People are like, oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, we get to Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard. He joins us next. We'll talk more Bills and Steelers here on The Fan.
Another firing today in the NFL. The Tennessee Titans letting go their head coach, Mike Vrabel. Bills and Steelers coming up on Sunday. Head coach Sean McDermott talking about the opponents.
You know, we got a good football team coming in here who is very resilient, very well coached. They have a talented roster, and this is going to be a good football game, and we've got to prepare for that. We've got some work to do here.
We'll talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard in the Shout podcast coming up next year in the Sports Bar. The Buffalo Sabres are 0-4 all-time against the Seattle Kraken. Sabres in Seattle tonight. That can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. Buffalo has won 2 in a row. We got St. John Fisher basketball tonight. The Cardinals looking to remain undefeated in Empire 8 play as they take on Cuca. Our coverage will begin at 7:30. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You know, we've got familiarity with Buffalo. We got familiarity with that venue. I'm sure they say similar things about us. It's January football. They have a lot of tape to digest and analyze and to prepare for, as do we. And so it's chess, not checkers this time of year. We're really excited about it all.
Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin talking about the Bills coming in to Orchard Park Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock. Let's talk more about the game. Let's look back at Sunday's win in Miami as well. We welcome in, as we do every Tuesday afternoon, Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard. Matt, I just kind of want to start off with a bit of a curveball, and I'm only bringing it up because Sean McDermott brought it up. The idea that in the preseason, this Steelers team absolutely mauled Buffalo. Is that McDermott just bringing it up to kind of pump up the Steelers' tires a little bit? Because, God, the preseason means so little to me as a fan that I almost forgot how bad the Bills looked against the Steelers that afternoon.
I don't know if there's anybody in the world that hates the 2-7 matchup on the 2 side of things more than Sean McDermott, because the expectations are so high. I mean, they're 9-point favorite, 10-point favorites at this point, and they're coming off 5 wins in a row, and I think you're always working against this idea of complacency. Now, I don't think that with everything that they've gone through this year, that this is a team that has the luxury of getting complacent. But I also think that a coach is going to pull every lever that they can. And, I noted it when he said it yesterday, and I had a little fun with it. But I do think I remember that game, and in the post-game locker room talking to Deion Dawkins about it, and he was like, this is a wake-up call. Like, to come out here in this game and get pushed around like this. Now, I know that it was that they were playing all their starters, and I don't think the Bills were playing all their starters. I'd have to go back and take a closer look at the game. But, Dawkins, it felt like a butt kicking. And that's something that I think that you can motivate your team with, knowing that, yeah, it's a 10-7 team, but there's talent over there, especially in the skill positions. I mean, you look at Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. They're 2 of the most fun young running backs in the league, and when it comes to just how they complement each other and their styles of running. And then Pickens and Deontay Johnson, if they have a great game, if they're dialed in, they're a fun young tandem in their own right. So it comes down to the quarterback. Mason Rudolph has his challenges, but I was doing a preview, an early look episode of Shout this morning with a Steelers writer, and one of the things we talked about was how impressed I've been with some of the throws that Mason Rudolph has made in 3 games. It hasn't been like sustained excellence, but there's been some high-level throws that he's made that I don't remember him making the last time around. So if you let them hang around in this game and he gets off one of those throws or one of those plays, it's going to be competitive. And Mike Tomlin coached team. They're always tough.
Yeah, before we dive more into the Steelers here, Matt, bring us back to Miami. You were down there. Like, what was the scene like with Bills fans? What was the percentage, would you say? And what was it like in the locker room after? Because this is a team, 4 years in a row, they've won the divisional title. Was it like, hey, old business, or did it actually mean something to this team, that considering that at one point they were 6-6 here?
I mean, I think it was a combination of the two. Like, I think whenever you get a chance to win the division, especially being where the Bills were, I think, like, during the bye week, they had a 4% chance to win the division. And that's crazy to think about, like 5 weeks removed from, some of the conversations that we were having. So I think that there is a awareness for what they've accomplished and an excitement about that. But all these guys have been here before for the most part. There's even the newer players. I mean, you take guys like Leonard Floyd and Connor McGovern. They've played big time playoff games. Floyd has a Super Bowl ring, so they know that this is just the ticket into what they have to get into to accomplish what they want. But there was joy. There was celebration. There was a pause in that moment. Like just seeing a guy. One story I'll take out is like Dalton Kincaid, right? Like it's so funny that we get so invested in the NFL world and how it operates, and that there's no time, right? Like you get in here for a first round draft pick, you got to produce, and he did. He had a great rookie season. He broke the Bills all time rookie receiving record. But he's also a very young player, and I think it was Joe Brady that was talking about that yesterday, and that sometimes you got to remind yourself that this is still a rookie that isn't doing rookie things. But in that moment in the locker room, I felt like he was a rookie, right? Like wide-eyed, innocence, like looking around, like just really enjoying the accomplishment. There's so many weeks of the year where it's like, you're just so head down, grinding, trying to get better, trying to figure it all out as your head's probably spinning at times. And I felt like that was like a cool moment to just see a young kid really basking in an accomplishment that he had a big hand in, too, in the way that this offense is played. And there's a lot of experience in that room. But there's also some of those cool stories that I think it was cool to witness.
We're going to learn more about the health of the Buffalo Bills here through the course of the week, Matt. But, man, I'm a little alarmed when you consider that Miami game. You lost some really, really important pieces, both sides of the ball. How do you think? I mean, we saw the performance of Dane Jackson. We saw Khalil Shakir step up. We even saw Trent Sherfield haul one in. Defensively, you're asking more out of Taylor Rapp. You're asking more out of Dane Jackson.
Balin
Spector, of course, having himself getting thrust into action as well. Who do you think we may see more of this weekend if we don't see Gabe Davis, if Rasul Douglas isn't ready to go?
I think I had mentioned this on a podcast sometime in the middle of the year when in a live show a fan was mentioning they're just dissatisfaction with the production of Trent Sherfield. And I pushed back a little bit and I said, to me, Trent Sherfield at that point, and even to now, he more felt like insurance for Gabe Davis, right? Like they went out and we talk so much about Taylor Rapp being that for Hyde and Poyer. And I feel like Sherfield in a lot of ways was that guy that can come in and replicate what Gabe Davis gives this offense. And we saw it on Sunday against Miami. When he went out of the game, I felt like Sherfield's importance and value and opportunity grew. And then we saw the real version of him. Like, of course, everybody's going to talk about the touchdown. Really opportunistic, really heady awareness play to make that play. But we're not talking enough about it. And then there was a comment on Twitter today, and I liked it. I agree with it, about his play on the Dawson Knox touchdown that really cleared the way to open things up for Knox, get him open in the flat. He kind of set like a natural screen and got upfield a little bit in his route and did it. And then Knox obviously makes the score. I mean, that's Trent Sherfield, right? Like Gabe Davis did the same exact thing earlier in the game to spring Khalil Shakir on a kind of a pick play or a block, on that short screenplay. So I think you'll see a lot more Sherfield if Davis can't go. That's why they brought him in. I think Balin Spector, I mean, listen, it's a lot to ask him to replicate what he did last week. But again, it's a matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers where I think it suits Spector a little bit more. I think that his quickness and side to side is a little bit more well-versed in against the run and maybe in coverage. I don't think his coverage grade was actually even that great. He was really flying around. He had that one tackle for a loss in that game, which I think was good. To me, the guy that you really hope is okay and can go is Rasul Douglas. I always think Dane Jackson will be up to a challenge. I think you can trust him. You saw Sean McDermott getting emotional talking about him after the game. But Douglas has been so good, and he is that guy that you could count on to take the ball away in a lot of games. So it's trending, it seems like, in a good direction for him. But, again, we don't really have a good idea of any of this until they start practicing tomorrow.
Yeah, we're talking to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, as, I remember listening to you. It might have been leading into the Dolphin game, just sitting in traffic, trying to get to the stadium. See, you're there early at the stadium, Matt. I'm not. And the topic, remember, weeks 2, 3, 4, hey, what's going on with the Dalton Kincaid? He ended up with 73 receptions. Your thoughts on Kincaid? Because, yes, what a kind of a developing player here, and it's exciting to see what's going to happen in year 2. And might we actually see more 12 personnel as the playoffs go along here, Matt?
Maybe. I do like how Joe Brady has kind of settled into his usage in terms of flipping them in 11, too. I don't think they want to become 12 dependent and even play as much 12 as they did early in the season. Now, I haven't looked at the splits in the last couple of games. Maybe they are playing a higher amount of 12, and I'd have to take a look at that. But in terms of the player, he's exactly what they drafted him to be. I thought in that Miami game, he really helped settle Josh Allen down, right? Like some of that work that they did over the middle of the field, just a short passing game. I thought the way they utilized Diggs, especially at the start of that game, was also the same kind of result. Like a lot of those easy button plays where you could just get 5 yards, keep the down and distance in a manageable place, and Kincaid is so good at that. What I really want them to start doing, and maybe it doesn't happen this year, and then this is something like that becomes an off-season, go work on this kind of talking point for the coaches, is like working things down the field for him. And we saw a glimmer of it with the 54-yarder 2 weeks ago. And I think that he has that in his toolbox. And I don't know if they use him up the seam and down the field enough. And I don't know if it's just he's not getting himself separation or open down there, although he is getting crazy amounts of separation. I think he's leading the Bills in separation yards per route run. But he's been great. He's been everything that they were hoping that he would be. And with Shakir's evolution over the course of this season, I think you're in a really good place that if you can't retain Gabe Davis, you're in a good spot to go out and draft a wide receiver, and then you have Khalil Shakir, who is like this. He can play in the slot, but he can also do other things too. Like he's not slot specific, but he really excels in that role as well. So they have a lot of talent in the pass catchers on their offense.
Now, when you see practice tomorrow, Matt, I want you to kind of keep a keen eye out for James Cook. I want him on that jugs machine. I want him on the jugs machine for the majority of practice, because we can't keep having a guy that's on the cusp of becoming a star in the NFL dropping easy touchdown passes. Again, the drop with James Cook there, which ended up leading to the Bills not being able to score at the end of the first half. But Cook's production here, and I know Allen was the star on Sunday night, New England's a tough run defense. Could we expect to see James Cook have a game if the Bills want to be physical and play that style against the Steelers come Sunday?
Yeah, I could see the Bills trying to get their passing game going early to try to open up the run. And I think James Cook could be a big part of that in terms of getting the ball in his hands, being a little bit more creative with how you do that. That's one of those ones that he's going to look back at the end of the season. And they won, so I guess you won't look at it in the same way as you would if you had you lost. But you got to make that play. And I was super critical of Josh at halftime. I probably didn't talk enough about that Cook play that really derailed that scoring drive. Only because he had been so, what's the word? Like, he just took too many chances in places that I just don't think in a game of that magnitude you could take those chances. And those are the ones that are going to potentially really hurt this team. And they're ones that, like, situationally, and Josh owned it after the game. He always does. He owns the fact that over those first 30 minutes, there was just a lot of that game where situationally, the Bills were putting themselves at a disadvantage, handing over points or not cashing in on easy points. I mean, if you put those three plays together, and one of them was in the second half, the Ty Johnson play, the interception when Gabe Davis went the wrong way or Allen went the wrong way, and then the fumble, not taking care of the football on a definite sack when you're not going to be able to get out of that and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. You'd cost yourself 9 points there. And, if Deontay Hardy doesn't run back that kick for a touchdown, that's the difference in the game. And that's how close these games are at this time of the year. But to your point, that James Cook play, that is a trust killer when it comes to Josh Allen looking for him in this offense. And I don't think it's going to be like, oh, James Cook dropped that touchdown, he's not going to throw him the ball anymore. He is. I mean, he's too talented not to. But it's always going to be something that's probably in the back of your head, and he's got to start making some of those plays, and I think it's an important piece as they kind of go into this next phase, the playoffs. He's got to be a little bit more intentional about those plays, because that kind of thing could completely kill a game against the Chiefs or the Ravens or the 49ers or Cowboys. I mean, they're all going to be tough at this point.
Yeah, Matt, I'm trying to picture what Sunday may be like, and if we get kind of just light snow and it's tough for footing, that's actually advantage wide receiver. And I'm wondering, if the Bills put it up this game, and if they do, my goodness, if they put Levi Wallace on Diggs, or if that's Shakir on Levi Wallace guarding him, I mean, your thoughts on the former Buffalo Bill, like refresh your memory here, Levi Wallace, and is that a player that you can kind of go after here?
Oh, definitely. I mean, he was a player that teams went after in Buffalo. I mean, I remember many a time where teams would just avoid Trey White's side of the field and completely try to attack Levi Wallace. And Leslie Frazier famously used to say, it felt like 10 press conferences in a season. Like, yeah, Levi, they're going to keep going after you until you force them not to. So I don't think they're in a situation where, in a perfect world, he'd even be on the field. Like, he'd be more in that depth role based on the conversations I've had early this week. But he's probably going to play because they're so banged up in their secondary. So I think that's definitely a place they can go. I also just think their back end in general, with Minkah Fitzpatrick so banged up, that's an area that you're going to attack. And then without T.J. Watt, there's real concern in Pittsburgh that they're not going to be able to generate the kind of pressure it takes to go up against an offense like this. So it's definitely listen, there's a lot of advantageous matchups in this game, and I think not having T.J. Watt out there, I think the record's 1-10 in games that he hasn't played since they drafted him. So it's not a good history. He is their defensive identity in a lot of ways. Alex Highsmith is a really good player. And watching him last week against the Ravens, he just flies off the ball. And they're going to have a plan for that. But when that's all you have to worry about is just one guy, as opposed to what they've always seemed to have. You know who the Steelers could really use right now is Melvin Ingram. Because I don't know what it is about that guy, but every single time he plays the Bills, he just finds a way to go off. I mean, he looked out of shape. He looked like 34 the other day, and he still ended up with his 1.5 sacks.
Matt, we can talk about what happens after Sunday. The team won't do it, but let's just allow ourselves for a moment to imagine the Bills winning on Super Wild Card Weekend. How do you see the rest of the bracket playing out here in the AFC? I think a lot of us are licking our chops thinking that if Kansas City can dispatch of Miami, the Chiefs coming up to Buffalo would be one hell of a divisional round matchup game.
Yeah, I think that's the one you want, too. Because I think it pushes out what I think is a very realistic possibility, which could be the Bills, if they beat the Steelers and then let's say the Chiefs win, there's a world we could live in where Joe Flacco goes on the road in Baltimore and just completely kills their season. Like, would that not just be the most hilarious storyline in January for that to happen? Because of all the things that have happened for that organization since he left. And, the saga around the Lamar Jackson contract, and he finally gets it, and they shift gears with Todd Monken at offensive coordinator and add a couple of weapons, one in the draft in the first round and Zay Flowers, and then Odell Beckham, and they both look the part. And then you get into the playoffs, and it's another epic failure for Baltimore. And don't forget that. Like, people, we get so caught up in the moment that people don't remember the history. And the history for Lamar Jackson is no success in the playoffs. He's got one playoff win. And I know he's got that regular season MVP trophy, and he's one of the best players in the NFL. And he's having the kind of season where I expect him to play better and have more success in this playoff run. But I think that Cleveland Browns defense is as good as any, if not the best, in the field on either conference. And so I think they can go on their own. Then you're talking about potentially the Bills hosting the AFC title game, which I don't know. I don't care who you play. That, to me, that's the scenario that you want to be in. And that's what Sean McDermott has been talking about since he took this job, is doing enough in the regular season so that you're hosting playoff games. And if you host all of them, and to be able to maybe get that kind of run and potentially try to get to the Super Bowl, even if you have to go on the road against Baltimore, I still, I don't know what the rosters will look like at that point and the injuries, but I feel very comfortable picking the Bills to win that game, knowing the history that Sean McDermott has against Lamar, knowing how battle-tested the Bills are down the stretch. Now, Baltimore is too. They've played a lot of good teams. They beat a lot of good teams. But I don't know. It felt like since that Jets game that this has been trending in this direction with the way that the Bills have had to figure out ways to win games. I still don't think they've played their best game. Would you guys agree that maybe the best game they've really played, well, it would probably be the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
But I almost felt like, well, offensively, I think that their best game was against the Eagles, and they lost that game. And, since then, they've figured out a way to win all these games, and it's going to be fun to cover this. I 4 weeks ago, I was thinking about what it was going to be like to cover the calamity that would be them missing the playoffs. And now it's this whole new, view on what this next month is potentially going to be like. But it starts in Pittsburgh, and I do agree with some of the fan sentiment out there that nobody should be looking past this game. This is still a Pittsburgh team that, they just don't make mistakes. They're not great, but they don't make a lot of mistakes, and they make you beat them. So the Bills are going to have to do that.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, the Bills are a 59-yard field goal away from a 7-game winning streak, Matt. That's the only thing. That's crazy to think how things are kind of gone along. Tell us what you and Ryan, the Shout podcast schedule here, and what we can read on the Syracuse Post-Standard this week, Matt.
Yeah, I wrote a story last week that I spent a lot of time on. It's still relevant, I think, today. It's how the Bills saved their season. Spent some time with Reggie Gilliam and learned a bit of a story going back to his, if you remember, that game against the Jets when he started it off with the big hit and forced fumble. He gave a little backstory on that that I learned about. I wrote about that and just, how this team has come together and, got a lot of good feedback. So that's up at the website. Feel free to check that out. We'll probably have a similar, bigger feature story at the end of this week. I'm starting to kind of pick through all that. And then from a show perspective, dude, every single day, it does not stop. I got one up right now. First look at the Steelers. Nick Faribault, he covers the Steelers for SteelersNow.com. Tomorrow's the Staples Show. Thursday, I have an interview with Mike Sando from The Athletic. We'll also have our Syracuse.com weather reporter coming on for a quick look at the weather this weekend. And then we'll have our preview show Saturday night, Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway, the new location. Wingnuts Bar and Grill is unbelievable. If you're coming in for the game from Rochester, maybe you want to come a night early, get a hotel room, come out to Wingnuts, hang out with me and Ryan. It's going to be a good time.
Matt, put this in your calendar for next week. Gino will be on assignment next week. So you, me, and Alex Brasky, just three bros talking Bills. Hopefully we're talking a Bills victory. I hope you enjoy your weekend, buddy.
Thanks, man. And listen, you got me really pumped up. Gino out, Brasky in. That's going to be a fun episode. I can't wait.
The way you phrase that, do you want a mulligan on that, Matt?
I'm just kidding, buddy. I'm going to miss you so much. Can you just call me after the show?
You can't hear how wide my smile is right now. You cannot hear.
I'll see you Sunday, Matt. Thanks for your
Love
time,
you, buddy.
Matt. We'll see you, Matt.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, Matt Perino, the Syracuse Post-Standard. Always good with this time to join us here. Looking ahead to next week, Gino will be on assignment, so it'll be
on
Tuesday.
assignment. I'm going to to be in Utica.
Yes, on assignment.
Yeah,
nobody goes to Utica unless you're on assignment. You're on assignment in Utica. And Brasky from the Batavia Daily News Bills Digest will also be stopping by, co-hosting with me a week from today. But love having Perino on with us. Good stuff, as always, from him. Worth checking out at NewYorkUpstate.com, Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout podcast as well. All right, we got some takes on tap next in the sports bar, Gino.
Yeah, so, my gosh, it is the silly season in the NFL. Lots of rumors. Who's everybody talking to? Oh, my gosh. I am just going to be devouring this whole Carolina Panthers process. They've already started this danger, and I'm telling you, it's unlike any process we've seen in terms of hiring a new GM and head coach. I will explain why all of a sudden, in a weird way, I'm actually a fan of the Carolina Panthers. We'll see if you agree with it or not. And it's never too soon to start thinking about next fantasy football season. Probably, if you're addicts like Danger and I, you review what happened this year. Can you apply lessons from last year? Andy Behrens has a piece up right now, and there is a great lesson here when it comes to how to, if you're in a dynasty league, anything like that. I'll share his thoughts.
I want to go back to a story we touched on yesterday. It's a lingering storyline from Sunday, and it's really not even a storyline anymore. But upon further review, and now after reviewing comments made post-game, I am all in on Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's awesome. I love me some Jameis Winston. I'll explain, and also a way for you to set a tone. It's a new move I unveiled in my house this weekend, and it just might be the move of a champion. I'll explain. We'll share some takes next. I'll drink to that is on the way.
You as excited as Perino to have Brasky in and me out?
No, Gino. I dread the days that you go on assignment. It's like peanut butter without jelly. You got to have both of us.
Brasky will be fine. It was just that took me a little back there.
Will be.
Perino's a little bit.
Well, that's Perino egging you and knowing exactly his role. And by the way, if you came in later, if you missed Matt Perino, we'll get that up and on demand for you shortly wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your shows.
You're listening to the
AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Another firing today in the NFL. Tennessee letting go of Mike Vrabel. 13-31 in the last 2 years for Vrabel in Nashville. Bills players off today. For the Steelers, it's going to be Mason Rudolph making the start at quarterback. Buffalo Sabres hockey tonight here on 96.5 WCMF as they are taking on Seattle. 0-4 all-time against the Kraken. Head coach Don Granato.
We need wins like every other team in the league. You know, to be at home is nice for many, many reasons. But for us, we absolutely have to stay in the moment and not get too far ahead of ourselves. So, you know, it's a homestand on the way it looks on the calendar, but, you know, it's tonight, and that's the only thing we need to worry about.
We'll talk to Amerks head coach Seth Appert coming up later this hour. We got St. John Fisher basketball tonight. The Cardinals hosting Cuca. Our coverage will begin at 7:30. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
All the respect in the world for them, and you know they handled us rather easily in the preseason, to be honest with you.
TJ Watt out. The Bills are a significantly better football team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Bills, they should win by double digits.
I would expect it to be a relatively tough game. Honestly, I think they're going to win, but I wouldn't expect an easy one. I don't think anything was easy at this time.
Mike Danger.
You can't lose to Mason Rudolph at home in the playoffs. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Bills win that game just based on better quarterback, more talent, obviously better team, right? But I don't know that it's by 2 scores.
Gene Battaglia.
My concern, I'll say right off the bat, and what is the great equalizer in football? It's the weather. Who knows what can happen, Danger, if things kind of get mucked up there. So, yeah, this is not a layup, so speaking. It's the Steelers coming up.
Michigan National Championship.
Oh, who cares?
What are you going to say?
Seeding works.
On to the Sabres.
Hey, Seattle.
The booing is okay. It just means you're hockey ready.
Let's go, Amerks.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Now, truth be told, I haven't been outside that much today. I came in this morning. There were some flurries, but it wasn't what I would call like treacherous or windy or anything like that. Now, I haven't been outside all day. I don't know if the wind that we were supposed to get has all of a sudden picked up or gotten really, really out of control, but everything is canceled tonight. Like, I've gotten so many text alerts about this is canceled, this event is canceled, after school all these cancellations. Like, what are we doing, guys?
Well, maybe they have data that would show tonight wouldn't be safe. I don't know. Maybe. Share with me the one thing I learned today. Actually, I kind of knew this. It was just kind of a confirmation. Your wife does not listen to our show.
Oh no!
If she did, what she told you this morning, like, oh come on.
So no, she doesn't. In fact, in my house, for the most part, sports are a great repellent. Tonight, I'll be watching the Sabres in the tank all by myself. I call it the tank because it is kind of like a team tanking. I go into the tank knowing that I'm going to make bad decisions, all in the hopes of emerging a better, more well put together franchise. It's the tank.
Do we have like a little cooler downstairs, or do you have to walk upstairs?
You know what I got? I got a bourbon cabinet. Just recently purchased a bourbon shelf and a nice bourbon cabinet, a nice collection for all my bottles on display there. It's got some LED lighting and it pulsates to music if I ever want to use that, which I never will. But it's just nice to know that it's there, Gino. No, I will be in the tank watching the Sabres tonight, and my girls will be doing whatever else they're doing in the house. It's a great repellent. So you're right. She does not listen to the show, and she knows. She knows at this point, especially this time of year when we get to the weather and you know it's going to be cold. It's how cold it's going to be. Dangerous temperatures, snowstorms, all of the stuff that happens this time of year. Then I'm just like, yeah, we'll be fine. We're equipped for all of this. Like if we're talking about a massive snowstorm hitting the South, yeah, they can panic a little bit. They don't get that every day, but we get this pretty much every day, every year. Now, the high wind thing is something that's always dangerous, right? I mean, if you get ice, if the tree limbs are, you could be talking about power outages and all that stuff. And I'm not trying to diminish anything, but it does feel like we, generally speaking, we just get so wrapped up in what the weather person is saying, and we're just terrified of
excuse me, I don't like
your
count. Attitude.
The count is here.
You do not. You should be scared, Mike Danger. I am Count Hesco, here to talk about the weather. Fear drives ratings. I mean, fear the weather, Mike Danger. Yes, cancel after school activities. It's going to be windy tonight.
How windy?
How windy? 20, 30, 40 miles an hour.
Poor Scott Hetzko. We like Scott Hetzko. He's a good dude. We just dubbed him Count Hetzko for no reason. I don't understand it, Count. So, is there snow coming in with this storm?
No. Just rain.
Oh, do we know how many inches of rain we might be getting?
Quarter inch, half inch, full inch, possibly. Mike Danger, you apologize. People should be very scared. That's why you need to watch 13 VAM News tonight, or your life may be in danger.
What? It's the lightning strike for me. What channel is it on? Is it a channel 7?
No.
8?
No.
9?
13 VAM News. Watch tonight.
Not on channel 11, not on channel 12, on channel 13. Very good. All right. So be safe out there. I'm not diminishing the weather. Be safe. But yeah, but my wife pulls me aside. She's like, I don't know. Do you think we should, get the bungee cords out and just kind of tie down some of the stuff in the backyard? I'm like, we will rebuild. We will be okay. If something blows across the patio, I'm pretty sure. Yes, I will. Fine. And then the audacity, the gall after I do it to say, maybe we should use another bunch. Like, do it however you want to do it. You do it. I'm out of here. Gone. Done. Just made me so pissed off.
Oh no. You're going to come home to a cold house. More ways than one.
Everything's fine. She's a saint, and she has a lot of patience for me, especially this time of year when Count Hetzko starts making the rounds.
Like, at what point do we get the call, or is it a letter in the mail? Like, hey, stop.
We have friends at 13.
We do.
Catalana, the entire sports department has been on the sports bar.
We like Steve Sinesol.
And I love Scott Hetzko. I think he's the best. He's all class. Love that guy. But he knows his Survivor football gene.
That's
knows
true.
His Survivor football. Viking fan. Won't hold that against him. But other than that, I don't know how the Count from Sesame Street became Scott Hetzko. But that's where we are in the sports bar. It's time for some takes on tap.
Yeah, I don't recall an NFL team going about their hiring process the way this team is. They got to hire a GM and a head coach. I'm talking about Carolina. Did you see this, Danger? They officially announced their candidates. 9 men for head coach. 8
How
men.
Many?
9.
9 times.
8 men for general manager. Like, this is some sort of reality TV show. Like, hey, everybody, here's our candidates. The coaches are all coordinators. The GM's working for other front offices, and no, there aren't any Bills connections here. And yes, because of the Rooney Rule, you do have to kind of disclose your interview. But what purpose does this serve, announcing this up front like this? I know because they're hiring a new head coach. Danger, that makes Carolina ineligible for Hard Knocks. But they are a television show. That is content. I want to see the tyrant boss and people having to be worried around him and everyone. That I want to see more Carolina. I am fully invested in the tire fire that is the Carolina Panthers.
Speaking of 13 Web, coming this fall to ABC, a new season of The Bachelor, NFL, starring David Tepper. Down on one knee, asking NFL GMs and coaches, will you accept this rose? Will you please come work for me, despite my reputation for being a giant D? Yeah, that's reality TV. I think the only reason why you put out a list of the names of your candidates is to give off the impression that you have a plan.
Or that we're going to talk to really everyone and anyone but the new owner, he's not even that. No, Tepper will Bill Belichick, what amount? Here it is, blank check, or Harbaugh, or whatever it is. Like, who would there be any big name that would take that check? Not if they have opportunities, they wouldn't. Like Bill Belichick, if he becomes available, I would assume would have opportunities.
If you're
Jim
talking
Harbaugh
about like a college coach, you look back at history, it was Matt Rule, right?
Yeah.
And that failed spectacularly. That's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, I know that those jobs are few and far between, and ultimately that's going to land, that you are going to fill those positions. We'll see which lucky guy gets to work in Carolina for David Tepper in this season of The Bachelor. Will you accept this rose? Can we go back to Sunday, the Saints pouring it on late on Atlanta? Because on the surface, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, it feels pretty cut and dry, right? Jameis Winston overrides the coach's play call. He called, Dennis Allen called victory formation, further embarrassing Atlanta's head coach Arthur Smith further. And Jameis may make plenty of bad decisions on the field, but he's for sure one of, if not the funniest player in the NFL, and absolutely unreal as a teammate. Gino, I don't know if you did this, but I went back and I actually watched and listened to his post-game comments. This is Jameis Winston on that decision.
Well, I apologize to DA because the play was victory, but I also explained to DA that it was a team decision, and I think when you have a team morale, and I asked the guys, I said, guys, like, what do you want to do? We know how much Jamal means to this team, and I understood from DA's perspective, so I give him that. But DA didn't condone that at all. He didn't. However, we decided as a team to do it, and man, we got an interception to the 1 yard line. So if we would have scored, would it still would have been disrespectful? Right. So
Tyron wasn't in on it, was he?
No, Tyron was not in it.
No, I'm just kidding.
It was an offensive team discussion. However, when you return the ball to the 1 yard line and you have that opportunity, we just had that opportunity and we decided. Do
you think it's the kind of thing?
So you have Winston basically explaining, with not apologizing, unapologetic, other than to apologizing to his head coach, who he completely went against, right? I thought that whole thing was hilarious. Just listening to how he's killing everyone with kindness, just cold-blooded. Dennis Allen might feel differently as it speaks to his lack of organizational control. But if you're a player, if you're in that Saints locker room, you want a guy like that on your team, and he's not wrong. You're headed for 6 with a pick the play before. Dennis Allen, head coach, went against what his team wanted to do. And for what? Just to protect Arthur Smith's ego, to not be called Bush League. Even Smith admitted afterwards in his post-game press conference that they got their asses kicked regardless of that late touchdown. Winston's a free agent, and maybe other coaches, as we talked about yesterday, will look at this play negatively and this player negatively. I tell you what, any locker room in the NFL would love to have a team-first guy like this guy around, and ultimately this isn't really a story, except Arthur Smith was a baby afterwards. Players do things that coaches don't agree with all the time, and vice versa. And when Jameis Winston is out of the NFL, there's a part of me that's going to be sad because he's a funny dude. He showed up one time before a game, empty briefcase, telling his teammates that what's inside is what separates them from greatness. Nothing. Here's an empty You know what's inside this? Nothing. You know what separates us from greatness? What's inside this briefcase? Nothing. He's like the Gallagher of NFL backup quarterbacks. He's a funny dude. And if you're a Saints fan, right now, I'd be pissed that your head coach is standing up at the podium apologizing for running up the score on your biggest rival.
All right.
That's soft. I'm with Jameis, man.
Okay, so Jameis, I give him credit because that doesn't sound like typical NFL player speak there. That was just refreshing and honest. Danger, he's not team first. Who's in charge of the team? The head coach. You cannot go against what the head coach wants. Now, Dennis Allen's kind of a passive guy. That's my impression.
I might go as far as to say what we just heard, dare I say, take of the year nominee. Team first. I'm going against the coach, and I'm going to call this play team first. We decided as a team to go against our defensive-minded head coach, by the way, and call this play at the goal line instead of taking a knee.
Well, it's funny. Let's nominate it Because here on January 9th, where will Jameis Winston be at the end of the year? Does he stay with the Saints? Does he hook on somewhere else?
That'll be a fun exercise.
Is he a bridge quarterback for some other team? Like, as far as guys that could be bridge quarterbacks, Jameis, he can show signs of life. He did put up a lot of yards, though, when you're throwing interceptions. But
He makes so many bad decisions on the field, but he don't care, man. He's going to fling it. And you can tell right there, like, again, bad decisions on the field, but I love that personality. I love how he was dealing. And the clip continues. It's a long clip. We're not going to play the whole thing, but there was a reporter that was challenging him on it about, hey, you got to face these guys twice a year. He's like, we already faced them twice a year. We beat them. Why would I have to worry about that? He's like, well, next year you got to face them twice a year. It's like, I'm not worried about that. We're not worried about that. Why are you worried about it?
Yeah, and like,
do you have any regrets? I have no regrets. This isn't about regret. This is about team.
Does the new coach bring up the video of that? I don't know. Like if it's McDermott, yeah. Like if McDermott's talking about the preseason, for crying out loud.
I mean, it is almost a fireable offense when you consider that Dennis Allen has that little control over what the offense does, and you're forced to apologize because you feel like that's the right thing to do. I hate that if I'm a Saints fan.
Yeah, the lesson here is we mock baseball for their unwritten rules, as they should. Baseball unwritten rules are crazy, but every sport's got them to a certain degree, do they not? Like, if you did that in high school, wrong. If you did that in college.
All right. But if Arthur Smith just goes across the field, shakes his hand, walks off the field, takes his comeuppance, and talks about how he got his ass kicked in the postgame, I don't know if this is a story. It's because he was a petulant child, because we know who his character is, right? We know what Arthur Smith is about. He's the smartest guy in the room, and he doesn't care about what you think. And good for Jameis Winston on doing that to a dirtbag like Arthur Smith.
I think a lot of us didn't realize what led to that first and goal, that it was a pick six tackled at the one. So what, the Saints, they're supposed to kneel down at the one?
Right. No, you're going for the touchdown. I loved it.
You're pros. You don't like it? Too bad.
Stop
it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I love it.
Yeah. I feel like we're really fortunate to have Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy join us weekly during the regular season. And he's got a piece up now titled about the 5 fantasy lessons from this past year that we learned. I want to highlight one here, Danger, not to take all of Andy's thunder. It's the tight ends. The days of overpaying for a Travis Kelce and before that overpaying for a Gronk, they're over. Sure, Kelce's still good. That's not the point. The point is the leading tight end in fantasy, Sam Laporta. Dalton Kincaid, he wasn't really used the first 4 games. He cracked the top 10 as a rookie. There are second-year players in Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, also in the top 10 of fantasy. Isaiah Likely just outside of the top 10. The new talent at tight end in this league, it's exciting. Maybe 2024 can also finally bring out the production in Kyle Pitts.
I think that I hear what Andy's saying, and I don't disagree. I think he probably wrote that article just so he could say that Laporta was the number 1 tight end, right? Like the rookie, he was the number 1 tight end in fantasy scoring this year. And we know how much Andy's man crush on Laporta is well documented, being an Iowa guy. But I would still say, because of position scarcity, Laporta's probably in the first 2 rounds.
Well, I think the point is, though, that you could wait on a Jake Ferguson or a Dalton Kincaid, or there are these other candidates, not to mention guys that the safe plays like a George Kittle or somebody like that.
Hey, before we get to Amerks head coach Seth Appert, who joins us every Tuesday at this time, here's something for you to do. Try this move. Set a tone. I debuted it over the holiday with folding my laundry, and I could see this applying to clearing your driveway, mowing your lawn in the spring. Give yourself a time limit for the mundane tasks in your life. I want you to set that timer on your phone or on your watch. Knock down a personal best every single time. Share it with those closest to you like the champion that you are. It's a strong play, Gino. Like you walk in, how was your day, sweetheart? Oh, I hit my PR emptying the dishwasher this morning, sub 3-minute pace, no big deal. You're dragging the trash out to the bin, the trash bin's out to the curb there with 4.3 speed. I feel like this play really sets a tone.
Absolutely. I'm all for like inventing games within your head here. Like
you're timing yourself now.
Yeah.
You're going for the personal record this weekend. If you're folding laundry like I am on a Sunday or on a Saturday, you're timing yourself. You're going for that PR. emptying the dishwasher, any mundane task.
You tell me if this is weird or not. Mundane task, okay? And I try to do this just for fun. I look at where my gas gauge is at, and I look at the price per gallon. And before I start pumping in my mind, I try to calculate the number. I'm still waiting for the day when I hit it. I've come within 2 pennies, Danger. So that mundane task.
The neurotic in me has to end on a round number. So like if it's never, it's like it's going to be 65 or I'm going to push it to 70. Maybe 68. You know what I mean? Like,
really?
I don't
top off.
Yeah, that's the neurotic me. I always top off, and I'll always push it. I'll push it both ways. You remember the Seinfeld episode where Kramer's driving around with an empty tank of gas with the needle pegged on E? I do that way too often.
Why?
I don't know. There is something to it.
I don't like that anxiety.
I was driving. By the way, just as a side note, find something in your life that you love as much as West Siders love saving 10 to 15 cents on a gallon of gas. Because the line at BJ's is ridiculous.
Well, that's a West Side thing, but then you have West Siders that actually take it a step further because for whatever reason, and somebody from the BJ's world has to explain this to me, why is gas more at the BJ's in Greece than it is Henrietta? Everybody knows the BJ's in Henrietta has the cheapest gas. Danger. So whenever you're down there.
But that's it.
That's a line. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, I'm never really down there. I've got my spot, and I'll always push it. I'll look at my gauge, that the electronic gauge that tells you what your range is and how many miles you have left. I pushed it to 0 a couple of weeks ago. Just absolutely pushed it to the limit.
Dude, do not call me then.
Felt
when you were like,
so alive, just
have
like
you
Kramer.
ever run out of gas?
Never.
See, I have. That's just a lonely, sad feeling.
I've had car problems. I've had plenty of car problems.
We all have.
Never ran out of gas. Never happened. Like to push it. Push the limit. That is. So you're like a gambling man. You're like, all right, what's the over under on what it's going to take to fill up my tank?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach, big weekend series in Charlotte, and we'll get a preview next on The Fan.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger. update.
Tennessee Titans today firing their head coach Mike Vrabel. Buffalo Bills players off today. For the Steelers, it's going to be Mason Rudolph making the start at quarterback. Bills head coach Sean McDermott talking about those Steelers.
You know, we got a good football team coming in here who is very resilient, very well coached. They have a talented roster, and you know, this is going to be a good football game, and we've got to prepare for that. You know, we've got some work to do here.
Our coverage Sunday will begin at 9 a.m. Tonight, the Sabres looking to make it 3 in a row as Seattle comes to town. Sabres hockey tonight can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. The Amerks back in action in Charlotte coming up Friday and Saturday. We'll talk to head coach Seth Appert coming up next year in the Sports Bar. We got St. John Fisher basketball tonight. The Cardinals hosting Cuca. Our coverage begins at 7:30. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. I mean, it's something I've never been able to do in my career. I've never had an outdoor game since I was like a 12-year-old playing outside. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for this. And I mean, this should be a lot of fun.
Amerks goaltender Eric Comrie, big weekend for the Amerks, playing in Charlotte. One of those games being an outdoor game. We bring in Amerks head coach Seth Appert into the Sports Bar. Let's start there, Coach. First weekend with Comrie in net. How'd it go?
Well, it was a good weekend. Obviously playing Cleveland, the top team in our division right now, and played real good at home, real solid game, won 3-1. Comrie was excellent in that, very stable, calming presence, which was great. Then chased each other down the interstate. You know, get in late, both teams, and we were in a shootout on Saturday. Unfortunately, lost 6-5 in overtime, but a lot of good things. Like, we were playing really good and found ourselves down 2 goals, you know, multiple different times in that game, 3-1, 4-2, and 5-3, and still kept fighting back to get a point at least. Obviously, it would have been nice to win 2, but a lot of good things last weekend.
Yeah, Seth, I wasn't able to go Friday, but I was able to catch the radio call. And in the post-game, like in the arena, they had Andrew Mossbergs interviewing Eric Comrie, and I'm just listening to Comrie. I'm like, wow, he really is invested, talking about how important that win, talking about his teammates. Sounds like pretty much some athletes maybe come down and they're not too happy from the outside, Seth. Is it fair to say that he's come down with a pretty good attitude here?
Yes. And to his credit, I'm not sure he's ever had a bad attitude a day in his life. I mean, he is, you want to talk about a positive, optimistic, energetic, hardworking person. I mean, that is Eric Comrie. He's awesome. He's fun to be around. He's infectious, and he knows for his career he needs to play. You know, and he's proven in the past that he's an NHL goalie, and he can prove that again. It's just hard to prove it when you're not getting the net, and this is an opportunity for him to get the net more often.
Seth Appert, our guest in the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia, as the Amerks are set to travel to Charlotte this weekend. Before we get to that, Seth, can you give us an update on the health of your team? Any injuries, concerns, anybody on the mend that we need to know about heading into this weekend?
Yeah, we're healthy right now. First time in quite a bit. To get Zach Metza and Ethan Prowl back was huge. Metza had 2 goals and an assist on Saturday night. Quite frankly, we probably have too many bodies right now at all 3 positions, which makes it a little, just have to manage that with guys with ice time and having to scratch too many good players. Sometimes that's an issue in the American League. You don't want to be too beat up, but sometimes being too healthy is a problem as well. So we have to manage a little bit of that right now, but we do have a good lineup right now for sure.
Now, Seth, like in our business, in the broadcasting business, like if you're talking to the crew or whoever it is and you bring up the word overtime in a premature context, you could get fined. You'll have to buy coffee for everybody else. Like it's frowned upon. That's a superstitious thing. I'm just wondering, like your team, it's remarkable how quite often 60 minutes isn't enough to settle it. Is it part of it like the never say die attitude, or part of it is just kind of hockey and it's cyclical?
What did the apostrophe S on that too? I mean, teams, because it traveled with you and you were behind the bench in Buffalo as well, Coach.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe it's me. Yeah, I think technically they aren't all one-goal games. Obviously, the overtime ones are, but I do believe, because sometimes you score an empty net goal, and so it's not classified a one-goal game. But I think it's 26 of 31 games this year are technically one-goal games, being one goal in the middle of the third period. And I think a third of them, I think I saw a stat that 25 or last 75 have went to overtime. So I guess probably if you look at the negative, you probably were a young team that sometimes has had trouble finishing games out when we have the lead. I think if you look at it from a positive perspective, we're a really resilient team that over the last couple of years has not given up on each other and has fought to the end and found a way to get a lot of games into overtime. So I'm a glass half full person, so I'll probably choose to look at it that way. But I think it's probably a little combination of both.
All right, walk us through your itinerary here as we inch closer to the weekend, and it's a big one as the team has back-to-back games against Charlotte, and we know the outdoor game is certainly something that's got a lot of people's attention. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I've never been part of one, so it's funny, too, I was talking to Michael Bass, our trainer, today, and he said this is his bucket list. I was are you excited? And he's he beamed. He was this is my dream come true. He's I've wanted to either go or participate in an outdoor game my whole life. And I was wow, that's really cool. Just the guys are excited about it. And I think it's even the setting in Charlotte is perfect. I mean, it's the field is gorgeous, but it's right downtown. The skyline's behind it. You certainly have an opportunity for pretty good weather in Charlotte for the game. So, and then they're a great team. They have a really, really good team. So it's going to be two great games. Obviously, Friday's indoors in the regular arena, and then Saturday will be the outdoor game. But it'll be a cool thing to be a part of for sure.
Yeah, it's Saturday. They're calling for a low of 30. It'll get up to 50, which, all right, that should be okay for the ice there. That's ideal. And, no precipitation, knock on wood right now. That course could change. Seth, my question is, are you getting any help with what you're wearing out there? When you're watching the NHL Winter Classic, the head coaches, they're always kind of dressed up nicely here. Have you put any thought into what you're going to wear out there on Saturday?
I leave that completely to equipment manager Andrew Stegheis. So he does have jackets, team apparel, things of that nature. Our players have come up with a very good idea for their walk-in, so to speak. That's kind of the new thing. Teams come in team attire. I thought they came up with a very, hometown appropriate, idea for what they're coming in. So that'll be cool. And I will wear whatever jacket Andrew gives me and be happy to do so.
Gene brought up the temperature, and God, I remember when they did Frozen Frontier. It was 10 years ago now,
10
right?
years ago, Seth. You watched the video of that. The college game the night before, it was a snow squall. It was bad, but the night the Amerks were here was fantastic.
Well, I also remember later that weekend, I was participating in a 3-on-3 tournament, and it was warmer, and the ice was soft. I mean, do you take that into consideration for Saturday night's game, knowing that the playing surface might be just a little bit off from what the guys are used to?
I mean, there's so many rinks that you play in that the ice conditions in pro hockey aren't as good as we'd like to believe it is. Most of our guys, the ice is better in a youth hockey rink because it's cold and the pro, a lot of the rinks, Cleveland probably had a concert or a basketball game the night before. The ice isn't very good in Cleveland, because it's a multi-use facility and it's being changed over all the time. So realistically, the guys are used to it. There's a lot of rinks around the American League and the NHL that the ice conditions are average at best. And so I don't think it's going to be dramatically different outdoors than it is, in any other situation.
Yeah, we're talking to Amerks head coach Seth Appert, who, boy, you got to wait until Wednesday the 14th before you're back home here, Seth. So at least travel here this week. That's got to be nice. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only time you'll get on a flight this year with the team, unless, of course, there's a postseason game.
Well, we'd like to get on a flight in the Calder finals. That'd be nice. Yeah, this is the only flight in the regular season. It's a great trip. Charlotte's a really, really nice city. They always have a good team, so you're going to be challenged. It's going to be two really good games. It's kind of fun playing the same team back-to-back occasionally. You don't want to do it all the time, but occasionally it is fun. There's a little animosity that builds up between the teams as the weekend goes on. So there's a lot of things I think that are great about it. You stay right downtown. This year it'll be even better. More of our front office staff from Rochester is heading down, and that's fun. We're going to go to a staff dinner on Thursday night. You have the marketing people and just more media relations, more people than normal will come, and you don't always get to hang out with them and get to go to dinner with them and share those experiences. And so that'll be a fun thing to participate in the whole weekend.
How is it getting back Yuri Kulik here? Tied for points in the World Junior, and did you get to watch much of it in Yuri's play there, Seth?
Yeah, I was glued to it. I love the World Juniors, always have, and obviously coaching at USA probably brought me more into the fight a little bit. But yeah, I watched as much as I could. I saw most of Cooley's games. He was outstanding. It was really, we got a great email from their head coach to the Sabres organization, thanking us for letting him come, but also praising him for not his play, the leadership, and the things that he did for the team from a leadership perspective. And that's why we let him go. The leadership, the pressure, putting the C on for his country, having to lead them to another medal, back-to-back medals for the first time in over 2 decades. And, it was really cool. We saw a lot of things in him that we see from Michael Mersch. We saw him going up and down the bench at TV timeouts before the game, things that Mersch does. And you always wonder, like, he's 18, 19-year-old kid. Is he watching all this? Is he taking all this in? Well, he is. Another neat thing I thought was, I was talking to Cooley today about his experience, and he talked about being frustrated at one point in the tournaments, and he called Roseanne. And I thought, man, is that cool? That these guys have forged such a friendship and such a bond that who's he going to turn to when he's frustrated? He's going to turn to his good friend Isak. And I just think it speaks volumes about both those kids. He's our leading goal scorer. He's one of the best players on the team, so it'd be huge to have him back.
Yeah, and I wouldn't sell yourself short on that one either, Seth. I mean, these kids are a product of their environment, and it's an environment that you've created there through the course of time where you've got guys, like Mersch that set a tone, a leadership quality that others just kind of gravitate towards, and that starts with the decisions you and the organization make in the offseason.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's I am a better coach with guys like Michael Mersch and Ethan Prow leading the way. There's just no doubt about it. And I feel very fortunate that I've only coached a couple games of pro hockey in my life without Michael Mersch by my side.
Seth, those couple games up in Buffalo, I'd be remiss because you're our insider now for the Sabres. Are we allowed to kind of get excited? Here comes the homestand, 2 in a row. What are your thoughts about tonight here?
I am excited. I really liked the feeling on the bench in those 2 games. And I know the second game didn't go well, but you just, you're an outsider and you come in and you're connected, you're invested, but you are an outsider a little bit. So you probably perceive things a little differently. And there's still things they of course they need to get better at, but I really like the feeling I got from the key guys. And Thompson and Dahlin are the biggest drivers, right? They're the best forward and the best defensemen and the guys that are the most important players. And I just really liked the competitiveness and the energy and the spirit about those two in good times and in bad on the bench. And I remember thinking, man, that's a really good sign. And obviously they're healthy right now, and Jack Quinn's starting to play really good hockey, and the goaltending's been pretty sharp. Pekka Luukkonen obviously had a great game in Pittsburgh, which is great to see. So, I'm not going to predict that they're going to go on like a 15-game winning streak, but I do think they're trending in a good direction right now.
So just from a coach's perspective, because it's still on my brain from their last game against Pittsburgh, Don twice, not once, twice challenged Pittsburgh goals and nailed both of them. Not only nailed it, but he was like emphatic about it. He didn't even sweat it. Like he just knew when he challenged both of them. And you don't want to get that penalty there. So new strategy, coach, just challenge every goal. What do you think?
Well, I was 1 for 1 up there. My good buddy, Justin White, who started in Rochester, was a student intern when I first got hired here. And the problem was that I praised him too much. I was begging Kevin to keep this guy in our organization. He's from Buffalo. He bleeds Buffalo. And I was like, I know we don't need 2 video coaches in Rochester, but let's just find a way to keep him. Well, we kept him, and they gave him a contract to stay in Rochester. He was beaming. Well, about a month later, Donnie lost a video guy, and Donnie called me, and he said, I heard you got some wonder kid down in Rochester. And he's like, what does he do? And I'm like, well, Donnie, you're Italian. You'll understand this. I said, he's my consigliere. And that's Justin White. And so Justin makes those calls. He reviews those things. And, man, was he hot. I texted him. I was like, stay hot, kid. This is a great night for you right now.
Doesn't have to buy any meals for at least a week, I would imagine. He's getting taken care of.
He is beyond good at his job and just a fantastic person to have on your staff.
Yeah, Seth, boy, fun weekend ahead here. Safe travels down to Charlotte. Looking forward to our conversation next Tuesday. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, guys.
You got it. Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach, as the team prepares for a series this weekend in Charlotte, including an outdoor match on Saturday night. That's a lot of fun.
Will we ever get another outdoor game here? That was quick. Not even up for debate. It didn't make money last time. Yeah.
That's right. Will it make money in Charlotte? Well, here's why I won't say that it won't. A lot of Rochesterians migrate down south and live in Charlotte. A lot of former Rochesterians. A lot of people with
kidding me? Anybody with like a 2-hour, like that's like number 2 on the list behind Florida, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Charlotte is where people that used to live in Rochester go to hide.
Okay.
Just to hide. Just to kind of be off the radar. It's not the South. It's not Florida. I don't know the business pros and cons of living in North Carolina versus living in Florida, or if there are any. But I just feel like the people that I've heard of that move to Charlotte are all the people that I'm like, well, what are you hiding from?
Well,
why are you leaving Rochester?
I've been to Charlotte, and there are buildings. They're just not a vibe down there, though. Like the NFL stadium is right down there, but that nobody ever talk. You talk about destination cities. Nobody ever talks about Charlotte. Like the Bills are okay. You can go down there very easily.
It's an emerging market, though. That's what they have going for them. Is they're an emerging. They're growing. They're not regressing. They're progressing. And the vibe, Nashville, Charlotte, Tampa, Florida, Austin, all those markets, emerging markets, Vegas.
That being said, their baseball stadium, oh my gosh, name me a better, more picturesque stadium in AAA than that
Minor
one.
League Ballpark Stadium. Elite minor league ballpark stadium. All right, we got to get to more news and notes from around the NFL. We'll get to happy hour here in a little bit as well. If you want to pull up a stool, the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open at 866-4FAN. It's award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub in the new location at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. We've got another firing in the NFL to tell you about that happened here in the last 24 hours, and more to unpack from our conversation with Matt Perino as we learn who will be starting at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who won't be on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And oh, by the way, a national championship last night that, hey, look, the game itself might not have been as tight as you would have liked it to have been from a entertainment standpoint, but I mean, you can't take anything away. Well, you can take a lot away from Michigan, actually. I mean, the debate could be, will this be a title that they have to vacate somewhere down the road, and what's next for Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh? We can get into all of that and more. Also on Elon's Twitter, that's X at the Fan Rochester, where one of our regulars, Brian from East Hilton, I listen to you guys every day for the whole 3 hours. Coach Appert Tuesday interviews are probably my favorite segment of the week. What a class act at Amerks Hockey. Yeah.
He's going to be an NHL head coach. He was an NHL head coach for a weekend. I was very excited for that. To me, you're like the interim head coach. Here's my resume, and he fit right in. So we got to enjoy Seth while we have him here. That's our job, to promote not only players but to promote coaches. Brian, appreciate that. Jack also writing in, I couldn't get off the road during your Matt Perino interview. How does he book guests like Marcel Louis-Jacques on his podcast? Well, that's a question for Matt, I suppose, but Matt's pretty dialed in.
Yeah, you just ask.
Yeah.
You just say, hey, are you available? And if you, Marcel, Matt have a relationship because they both covered the Bills at the same time, right? So,
well, you remember, we would have Marcel on
every
weekly,
week.
And it was actually Matt be like, hey, you could put Marcel on every week, but you can't love Matt. Come on in. And that's how Matt Perino became our weekly guy.
And by the way, you want to talk about Perino being a class act or Seth Appert being a class act. What makes him a class act, Brian, Jack? What makes him a class act? They tolerate us on a weekly basis. Let's be honest. I mean, we can't thank them enough for giving their time for us to share with you and putting up with and tolerating us and our goofy questions. I mean, Perino just wants to take a shot at you wherever he can, Gino. I mean, between you wedging your foot in the door for the Shout podcast, and Seth was great today. Loved hearing some of the behind the scenes, not just the team, but also I knew that there was something about the video reviews the other night in Pittsburgh that's like, no, Donnie is pretty confident about both of these calls, like both of these challenges. He didn't even really look twice.
So that's a lesson, right? And whether you're McDermott, whoever it is, because you need to have that person up in the box, video, boom, hire the best, pay them six figures, and make that your guy. And it's worth, it won the Sabres the game on Saturday night.
He's your consigliere. And McDermott got a challenge, right? Which, I mean, come on. You had McDermott getting challenges. You had Granato getting challenges. Like, everything bouncing our way last weekend. Let's see if it continues tonight.
All right. So I feel like, cliff notes here. Consigliere, a member of the Mafia family who serves as an advisor to the leader and resolves disputes within the family.
Wait, you haven't watched The Godfather? You didn't know that's what a consigliere was? Gene, have you watched The Godfather?
Do they say that in The Godfather?
Answer the question.
Oh, I have. Yeah,
okay.
I've watched. Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1.
That's the take. Yeah. The consigliere, the guy that Robert Duvall's character is always advising what you should do or what you shouldn't do and how you should do it, and kind of deploying the troops, and he's kind of spinning the plates, all the plates that are happening. It's him. He's the guy that's
so
making
the consigliere is just as important as the boss.
You say he's like legal counsel, right? Like, I'm the guy that's gonna get you out of trouble if you have some issues. We'll make them go away. Very quietly, an important member of the family.
Kind of like the wolf.
Oh, no question.
You're the wolf, yeah.
Winston Wolf.
Yeah, I'm
here to solve problems. Absolutely right. That's exactly
we allowed the goal. Consigliere. Okay, I can solve this problem. Review.
A round of shots on the way after 5 o'clock as well. We'll go around the world of sports. And again, 866-4FAN if you want to join us. 585-866-4326.
Fan Rochester Sports Update.
One firing in the NFL today. The Tennessee Titans parting ways with head coach Mike Vrabel. It'll be Mason Rudolph making the start at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers when they visit Buffalo coming up on Sunday. Bills players resuming practice tomorrow. We've got Sabres hockey tonight on sister station 96.5 WCMF. Seattle the opponent. Sabres head coach Don Granato says the task is simple.
We need wins like every other team in the league. You know, to be at home is nice for many, many reasons. But for us, we absolutely have to stay in the moment and not get too far ahead of ourselves. So, you know, it's a homestand on the way it looks on the calendar, but, you know, it's tonight, and that's the only thing we need to worry about.
Tonight being the first of 6 straight home games. We've got St. John Fisher basketball tonight. The Cardinals looking to remain undefeated in Empire A play as they host Cuca. Our coverage begins at 7:30. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
All the respect in the world for them, and you know they handled us rather easily in the preseason, to be honest with you.
TJ Watt out. The Bills are a significantly better football team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Bills, they should win by double digits.
I would expect it to be a relatively tough game. Honestly, I think they're going to win, but I wouldn't expect an easy one. I don't think anything is easy at this time.
Mike Danger.
You can't lose to Mason Rudolph at home in the playoffs. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Bills win that game just based on better quarterback, more talent, obviously better team, right? But I don't know that it's by 2 scores.
Gene Battaglia.
My concern, I'll say right off the bat, and what is the great equalizer in football? It's the weather. Who knows what can happen, Danger, if things kind of get mucked up there. So, yeah, this is not a layup, so speaking. It's the Steelers coming up.
Michigan National Championship.
Oh, who cares?
We're innocent.
Cheating works.
On to the Sabres.
Hey, Seattle.
The booing is okay. It just means you're hockey ready.
Let's go, Amherst.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, we appreciate you listening. It's happy hour in the Sports Bar. We're driving home on 95.7 FM, AM 950. We've also got the video stream up at The Fan Rochester, our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester on Twitch as well. And we welcome your phone calls here. Pull up a stool on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4326, 866-4FAN. Can we start with the relationship between the two head coaches on Sunday, Gene? I don't know if you knew this or not.
What? Sean
McDermott and Mike Tomlin both played college football at William & Mary.
You know, all those quarterbacks from that draft, we're going to have 2 going head-to-head. Did you know Mason Rudolph was in the same draft class as Josh Allen?
I remember the Mason Rudolph conversations.
Trapasso had him QB1 in that draft.
Yeah.
There were people that were saying, hey, you know, if the Bills miss out on Sam Darnold or wherever, just trade down and get Mason Rudolph. He went in the 3rd round.
Yeah. I wonder, based on what we saw last night, how much Michael Penix hurt his draft stock.
Yeah. Kind of when you're amped up, the ball will kind of sail on you and just a little off target last night.
He also really felt like he was pretty banged up. I know that everybody's banged up at this time of the year, but man, you could just tell he was laboring a little bit there as you were getting down to the wire. But if he was a projected first rounder, after what you saw last night, does it hurt his stock? Does he slide to the 2nd? Or could he be like a 3rd round of Malik Willis, a Mason Rudolph, a guy that some people are high on?
I think it's how many ACLs? 3? It's the health issue that would have. That's the flag.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I didn't even bring up. But yes, all the ACL injuries. What kind of a red flag does that put on his draft prospect? Oh my God, did we break the draft seal unknowingly just now?
I have heard from people like Brandon out at Fisher there saying, hey, when are you guys going to start talking about the draft? I'm like, hey, the Bills are still in the postseason. We've got plenty of time to do that. But when you're looking at the draft order, and that's part of this too, like, will the Bears ace this, or are they going to F it up here?
Well, if there's a theme to happy hour, if we're going to go down that road, and we say it all the time, dysfunction starts at the top. And I can't tell you what the motivation will be for the Chicago Bears with the number 1 overall pick. And I can't tell you why the Tennessee Titans decided today to move on from Mike Vrabel.
Here's my theory, okay? And Amy Strunk Adams, the daughter of Bud, okay? They had like this little family squabble, and she's in charge for now. And she had this good relationship with Mike Vrabel, or so I thought. To me, this was a surprise. And there's a piece out of The Athletic that says the Titans have an ownership problem, pointing to this. She went out and said, well, we could have traded Mike Vrabel. Didn't say to who, but you know who she's talking about, being the Patriots. But that would really hurt us in terms of our process in hiring the next guy. So here's my thought, Danger. Would it have been possible, did Mike Vrabel go to the owner and say, listen, if there is an opportunity, I'd like to go back home to New England. Oh, you're not one of us. Goodbye. Or, you know what? Maybe that you're trying to weigh this out. Just get out the door. If you don't want to be here, adios.
Or did he ask for permission to, hey, New England? Yeah, New England reached out to me. They would like to know if they have permission to speak with me about their potential openings.
Well, they can't. If they did
that's
tampering.
Right?
But if New England, if it went owner to owner, and somehow that got down to Vrabel, look, there's ways you can get the message to Mike Vrabel without.
Or could it just be as simple as new GM, head coach that's been there a while? We don't see eye to eye on what the future of this team looks like. My biggest issue with Vrabel is just the sideline, just the body language on the side. He always looked exasperated, like not just always exasperated with something. Something's going wrong, and he's just always got that exasperated look on his face. Kind of the opposite of what you get with Sean McDermott, Happy McClappy hands over there, just constantly, even if things are going bad, shake it off, clap your hands, move on.
I think part of that danger is when you have a player that is at a high level. Now, I don't think Mike Vrabel is a Hall of Famer. Maybe some Patriot fan might.
Big part of those championship teams.
Yeah, and when you're playing at that high level and you see it for yourself, what you want to see, and then you don't, it's frustrating. That's why players who are great in this league, and I'm going to say Mike Vrabel is a great player, not a Hall of Famer, but champion, big part of that defense, and this isn't the way you look at Hall of Famers, whether it's Wayne Gretzky, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, they flame out because they can't tolerate, this isn't what I'm used to
right
here.
And also I think that there's a sense of entitlement that comes with that as well. I've won championships, you haven't, so I know what's best. And if you're trying that move out with a new boss, a new GM, who really, you probably don't respect because you have a vision for what the team is that doesn't mesh with what his vision for the team is. And let's face it, the Titans could have gotten a haul before the season started if they would have moved on from Henry, if they would have moved on from Tannehill. They moved on from A.J. Brown. He didn't want that to happen, but it did. So all of these things, Vrabel can walk away saying, it wasn't me, I wasn't the problem. When in reality, a little bit of the problem because your vision isn't aligned with the people that are with you and you're unwilling to be malleable. You're unwilling to be flexible. You're unwilling to work and collaborate to get to a place where you both can be satisfied.
Well, the new GM that's hired, he didn't have a relationship with. That was really it. When you fire the other GM for trading A.J. Brown, not giving the contract, which is fireable, but then you bring in an outsider, the former player personnel director of the Niners, to be the new GM. All right, who's going to win that battle internally? It's going to be the GM. Now he gets to hire his own guy. This is where I would say caution why it may not be the right move. Do you think Will Levis is a guy or not? No one can answer that question either way. I think it's exciting if you're a fan down there. Let's see what we have. But it's not helpful when you're going to change the whole thing over and you're going to bring in a whole new system and everything else there. So there is some risk. We've seen that with other places. Look at Sam Darnold. I don't know if it would have been any different, but he may be in part where he is right now because he went through system after system after system. So for Will Levis, hey, good year, kid. Now you got to learn everything all over again with the new head coach.
Yeah, but I guess that would be the first interview question, right? Like, can you work with what we have? Can you see what we see in Will Levis, and can you devise a plan? Can you know who did it well And we're talking about a guy who just got thoroughly outcoached by Sean McDermott. But I think Mike McDaniel, in retrospect, how he dealt with Tua coming in, showing him the love immediately, positive about the change, positive about what he has in mind for the player. I can't speak to the character of Will Levis, but I think most guys would love to have that kind of relationship with the head coach and know that the head coach has your best interest in mind. And if we work well together, we're going to win a lot of football games. That's who they have to bring in, somebody that can work with Levis long term. And then you build around it, and you look, you have Tajay Spears, a nice piece. You're working on that offensive line with Skoranek, who you drafted last year. Defensively, you got some work to do. But
here's my prediction, because if you're going through the who does somebody feel comfortable with, although no, Steve Wilkes didn't match up. Forgive me for that. I thought Steve Wilkes deserved another shot as a head coach, but he's the defensive coordinator. Chris Forrester is the run game coordinator. Remember, you don't have a play caller. Shanahan's a play caller of the Niners. I'm just wondering who from that tree that could end up in Tennessee there.
Well, to go back to dysfunction starting at the top, if you're a Titan fan and you know that ownership is an issue and you've made some critical mistakes in terms of your personnel and your players that you've moved on from or drafted in the last few years, moving up from the coach gives you at least a clean slate. But I'll say this, I don't know that Tennessee will be what they were with Mike Vrabel. It's one of those moves where when your team fires the coach and it's not like unanimous, it's not like everybody's like, oh yeah, he's got to go. You kind of look back at it and you're like,
Well, and kind of with that, now we can say, and we're kind of joking about this, like Derrick Henry's gone. Like he's not coming back to like a rebuild or somebody like that. So, all right, Patriot fans, now you're licking your chops and you're thinking, ooh, yeah, you bring in Derrick Henry and Vrabel. And here's why that, I think, would be a mistake, because what is the problem in New England? Oh, it's Bill Belichick. Okay, there are two Bill Belichicks. I think the coach, Bill Belichick, is still okay. I think he got them really good job on the defense this year, just had really a terrible offense. Well, he's responsible, being Belichick the GM. So if you're going to go bring in Mike Vrabel, and the Patriots have not parted ways from Belichick, who's going to be in charge of the personnel there? It better not be Mike Vrabel. What's on his resume that might make you think that he should be in charge?
Well, that's what Vrabel wants ultimately, right? That's probably the thing that led to his demise here, is that he wanted more control over the direction of the players and the personnel that you're bringing in, and he didn't have it because you had a GM, one who traded away A.J. Brown, and then another one that you just don't have really a relationship with because of just the short amount of time you've worked together.
Can I read a quote here from you, and then you have the lie meter going on here? This is Rand Carthen, who just minutes ago spoke to the media, asked, all right, what was your relationship with Mike Vrabel? Quote, we were in lockstep. I want to finally dispel that. I consider him a friend. We worked well together. We got along. I felt our collaboration was fine.
That's the guy you chose.
Does anybody in this league tell the truth? Ever?
That's the guy you chose. It's just standing in front of the media, just lie.
Yeah, it's the national media.
If all of that is true, well, then what's the problem? Why isn't he there? What happened?
Did Amy Adams Strunk make a pass?
Do you really think that you're going to find a better head coach for your team next year than what you had in Mike Vrabel? If you're a Tennessee Titan fan, I don't think you are. It's going to be a rough couple of years here for Tennessee.
Which they probably don't care because, well,
they got their money.
Yeah, the new stadium's going up.
Yep, they got their money. Yeah. They got their new stadium. Everything's good. The public money's already there. Dysfunction starts at the top, and Vrabel will be a fine head coach wherever he lands. I'm sure that, and I always think of the day that I remember. I remember distinctly the day where I'm like, the Bears are going to be a bad team for a very long time. It was the day they fired Lovie Smith after a 10-win season. Missed the playoffs, won 10 games, fired him. I'm like, they are going to be bad for a very, very long time. And they haven't been right since, 10 years ago now? Something like that? A long time ago. It
was 2011, 13 years ago.
13 years ago.
13 years ago.
Yeah. Bad decision. And now I'm not wishing that on Titan fan. I wouldn't want 13 years of look, maybe a bright spot, but do you really consider double doink to be a bright spot? I mean, that's the life I've led since they moved on from the coach that probably didn't deserve to lose his job. I don't know that Vrabel deserved to lose his job, but then again, we're not there in the meetings. We don't know the truth about those relationships, and we're certainly not getting the truth from Carthen there with those quotes. If all that is true, then you have no reason to move on from him. What are you doing?
Chris in South Central Kentucky answering my question: does anybody in this league tell the truth? We, meaning here in West New York, have a GM that tells the truth. He'd rather go to training camp if only to get out of running the CVS.
He's absolutely right. I mean, that's the difference between the GM in Tennessee and our GM.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's a great setup. It's a great town. They embrace us. It's not too far away. Listen, like anything, there's always a little bit of, I got to go stay in a dorm room. I got to do this. But when the guys get there, there's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of fun. And it takes pressure off if you've got obligations at home, taking kids to daycare or night feeds, wherever you are in your family plan. And even, listen to my wife, hey, honey, what time are you leaving? Can you stop by CVS and pick up prescription for me? Like, I don't have to worry about any of that. And I know the players feel the same way.
Yeah. Tasker's just egging him on, too. Like, yeah, man, I know exactly how you feel. Yeah. Absolutely. Tell me more. I've never been so close to you. Brandon, tell me more. Tell me what else you're getting out of. Yeah, that's honesty. I mean, Brandon Beane that's got to be a tough thing for Brandon Beane to be able to, like, mute himself sometimes and not say the inside things out loud, because it got him in trouble during the COVID year, too. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, like, would you cut a player over? Yeah, absolutely. Nope. Wrong thing to say. Got your letter from the league.
Yeah, sorry about that. Was I not supposed to say that out loud? Oh, okay. Well, that'll be an interesting thing to watch, and there's plenty of off-season storylines to pay attention to. But we've got a wild card weekend in front of us, a super wild card weekend in front of us. It includes the Bills and the Steelers Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, a game you'll be able to hear on the Fan.
Ooh, I got a question for you, bud.
Yeah.
Because wild card weekend means upsets. You're hoping it's not Pittsburgh against Buffalo, right? You're looking at those 6 ones. And I'm not going to consider Tampa Bay over Philadelphia an upset. You could. But of those matchups, which upset do you think is the most likely to happen? Rams in Detroit.
Right now, if I look at the NFC bracket, I could see the Rams being a Super Bowl team.
What? Okay, I could see them. I could see McVay going in Detroit and ruining their party.
Yeah.
Okay, that's step one. And assuming, all right, why am I drawing a blank? Green Bay is not going to win in Dallas, correct?
I don't think so.
No. So then you would have the Rams going to San Francisco, a rested San Francisco team?
Yeah. Yeah, and beating the Niners. And then if the Cowboys are in the championship game against the Rams,
the McVay would go into Dallas and win that game.
You got it. Now, if you look at the AFC bracket, we all kind of want to pencil the Bills in to advance, right? And you would get the Chiefs if the Chiefs beat the Dolphins. Yeah, you could see the Bills winning against the Chiefs.
But what happens in the other side of the bracket?
Ravens win.
Okay.
Ravens, Bills in Baltimore. Bills beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Bills, Rams. Roll the tape. Bills, Rams. Dare I say Bills win the Super Bowl because they're facing the Rams? I don't want to get everybody too excited, but isn't that what's fun about looking at the playoff bracket and kind of seeing how it could go? I mean, that path to me feels very doable for both conferences.
Well, the thing that would concern me if I'm a Niner fan is you're going to get like a team that can put up points there, right? In whether that's Baker Mayfield and don't laugh, they can move the ball. And if you are going to be having to chase points, do you trust Brock Purdy in a playoff game? Well, I guess he won one last year, but there's been times danger this year. He's looked terrible. Christmas night, terrible.
kind of like the Rams. I look, I really, throughout the course of the regular season, I'm jealous of the Niners. Man, that team has everything I want in my football team, right? Great defense, anchored by a good pass rush. And God, now you got Young on one side, Bosa on the other, Fred Warner, Greenlaw, all those guys. The secondary is nasty. Offense, you can run the football. You're athletic, but you're also physical. I mean, just everything about that team, hard not to love the Niners. And yet here I am saying, yeah, in the NFC, I kind of think the Rams are the team that could make it to the Super Bowl.
Had not then an eligible man snafu happened, or maybe had just Dan Campbell said, you know what, we're going to kick the extra point and go into overtime. Had the Lions won that game, they would have been the 2 seed in getting the Packers. Who would strike more fear into them? The divisional opponent that they just lost to on Thanksgiving Day in their own place, and they look pretty bad doing it, or to be the Rams? Okay, yeah, look, this guy that was here all these years, we know his tendencies.
Yeah, I just think the Rams are going to go in there and beat them. It feels like just the giant letdown. I feel bad for Lions fans if it happens, right? Like you've waited all this time. It's your first playoff game how old is Ford Field? This is their first playoff game, right?
Right. Yeah.
Ford Field. I mean, you've waited all this time, and only to see. I mean, the storyline is just too good. All that time, only to have the guy that played there all those years come in and rip your heart out. Yeah, I see that happening. on Saturday night. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so now we got the predictions coming in. At the Fan Rochester on Elon's Twitter, X. One of our favorite accounts, one of our regulars. Beauty bets, golf, Cowboys, Chiefs, Super Bowl. Lock it in. I never want to say anything is a lock.
Well, I said this at the beginning of the year. I'm going to stick to it.
We had Ravens.
I had Ravens over Philly. Which Philadelphia, that's the one team nobody's picking right now. So I guess I can't hedge, Danger. Can't hedge.
I had Ravens Niners.
And you're hedging.
No, that was my preseason pick.
Then you got to stick with that, dude.
Well, okay, fine.
Dude, that's you picked both.
You just heard me gush about the Niners. It's disgusting how much I love that team. It's disgusting. I'm so jealous. I'm just so jealous of everything that team has.
I like how you get jealous of other teams, how you want the Bears to play. Like you were jealous of Seattle back when.
Oh, my God. The Legion of Boom? Would have killed to have Richard Sherman in the Bears secondary. Love that. Would have killed to have Marshawn Lynch as your feature back. Are you kidding me? Yes, of course. I'm jealous. That's what I want. The Bears look at these other franchises. Do it that way. Just do it that way. I mean, isn't that what the Bills did with the Patriots? Didn't they just kind of come in and do it the Patriot way? They just kind of flipped the Patriots on their head and beat them at their own game? Yeah, that was my preseason prediction. But man, something about the Rams. Mark it. Let's see how it goes. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe the Lions blow the doors off of them. Good for Detroit.
Well, that's what makes this weekend fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I would agree, though, that back to the original question, which game most likely is an upset? It's not Miami going into Kansas City. I'm sorry. Like, Miami's banged up. Going up there, it's going to be negative wind chill.
I know Browns fans are really, really enthusiastic because they just whooped Houston.
Without C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud. And there's a home playoff game, and you have C.J. Stroud. And you don't have his full complement of weapons because you got some injuries to deal with there. But Houston can win that game. And by the way, that wouldn't be an upset. They're the 4 seed, right?
Yeah.
Like, technically, it would be Cleveland going in there. But can you repeat what you did? Do the same thing that you did to Houston? I don't think you're going to be able to repeat exactly what you did the last time you went into Houston. I think DeMeco Ryans is probably a pretty good coach, defensive-minded head coach. Figure out ways to, look at the film of Joe Flacco. He's a friggin' statue. You got to get your pass rush to get on. I know that that offensive line, Cleveland's offensive line, it's a good offensive line.
But as much as I would love to see Flacco go in there, and I know Browns fans, I think, no, don't see it.
Well, regardless, it'll be a great weekend, a lot of fun. And this journey is just beginning. This is the second time on the roller coaster, right? We always use the analogy of the NFL season being a roller coaster ride, and when it's done, you kind of like, let's do it again. I can't wait to do it again. Well, if you're in the postseason, you get to start over.
I, for so many years, felt like, oh, I'm the kid who the whole class got invited to the party, but I wasn't. And here, like every year, looking at the postseason now, my gosh,
yeah, you get to
4 straight years.
You know what? You know what the postseason is? Fast pass. You could go again. You don't have to wait in line. Like, let's go. We don't have to wait. We don't have to deal with the preseason. None of the buildup. None of the
draft. Things we haven't talked about this week. Draft order. 2024 opponents.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. We got the fast pass, baby. Yeah. We got the fast pass, and we're ready to take that ride on again. Can't wait. All right, let's get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about college football last night, but we'll go back, revisit that. Big name in the NBA, season over. We've got a Wander Franco update, and we'll tell you how much time he could be looking at. Those stories and more coming up.
We also have last call on the way before we close up shop at 6. That means you can join us by calling 585-866 for FAN, the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.
Tennessee Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel. Bills players are off today. For the Steelers, it's going to be Mason Rudolph making the start at quarterback. Head coach Sean McDermott of Buffalo talking about those Steelers.
We got a good football team coming in here who is very resilient, very well coached. They have a talented roster, and this is going to be a good football game, and we've got to prepare for that. We've got some work to do here.
Buffalo Sabres in action tonight. They host Seattle. Coverage can be heard on sister station 96.5 WCMF. We've got St. John Fisher basketball here tonight on the Fan Rochester. The Cardinals hosting Cuca. Our coverage begins at 7:30. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today you can get discounted lift tickets to Swain. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. One Bills Live in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Weekday afternoons on The Fan, Rochester.
Well, there'll be a lot less balance as we go here because we need him to score more. So he'll be pushed more and more by us to get to the inside ice, take pucks to the inside. He's so willing to battle. He's incredible in battle, but he takes his battles to the outside, buys time to set the next guy up. So, either the two guys with him better be ready to score and compensate on the positive side for that, or we got to get him to the inside. So, like every other guy, he's a guy we need more out of because of the situation we're in, and we'll continue to push that initiative. And, as I mentioned, those are the things that go through my head. Is there a different personnel, a different shooter that could be there as well?
Don Granato, that's some comments on Casey Middlestead and his line. As the Sabres tonight will be on our Odyssey sister station, 96.5 WCMF. Gino's on assignment tonight. A
little Fisher tonight. Yeah. Only one team, the Seattle Kraken, Danger, have not lost during their short time in the NHL, and I'm guessing you might know the answer to that. That would be the Buffalo Sabres. Seattle, now in Season 3, they're 4-0 all-time against Buffalo. And no, this is not going to be easy tonight for Buffalo. Seattle enters this game on a 10-game point streak, the longest in their young history. Now, for Buffalo, tonight marks the season-long opener here of the 6-game homestand. You can't say this is going to make it, but you could say this could break it once and for all here. Buffalo given a 6% chance right now to make the postseason. Coverage tonight, again, you mentioned on 96.5 WCMF.
I can't quit it. I will watch. Don't worry. I'll have some thoughts tomorrow. I wish I could quit the Buffalo Sabres. I'm not in hate watch mode. There's still something, and part of it I think is because we get to talk to Seth Appert every week.
Yeah.
And, just from the 2 games he was up there, hearing him say, yeah, they're not that far off. They're not as far off as I think their record indicates, or as far off as people might think they are. And if Seth is saying that, I don't believe that to just be hyperbole. I think that there might be something to that.
I'd like to know more about the math here because, yes, I'm sourcing this analytic that says 6% chance, but they're only 6 points behind New Jersey for the final wild card, so it doesn't seem like it's that far. But
do you know the 2 teams right now that are the point leaders in the NHL?
No idea.
Going to blow your mind. Ready? The Winnipeg Jets and the Vancouver Canucks.
Who missed the postseason altogether last year.
Lots of hockey left to be played. In fact, last night, I was up way too late after the college football national championship that I know we're going to talk about next. And I flipped over and I saw the conclusion of the Bruins and Avalanche game because I saw that matchup and I'm like, that's a tasty matchup in the NHL. And dude, when I tell you, hockey is just different. You know when you're watching 2 good teams. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. In the NHL, you know when you're watching 2 good teams. And that game was wildly entertaining. Back and forth. Every team had an answer. Each team had an answer for each other. Great goaltending. Goes to overtime. Power play in overtime. Shootout. I mean, it was a very, very good product. But it takes 2 to tango. You need 2 good. So I'll watch tonight, and I'll be reminded of what a good hockey game looks like, and I hope I can get something close to that.
That is the knock on the sport, Danger. Well, one of them, but number 1 on the list is they're 2 different games. Like what we're watching right now, yeah, it's fun. And when you get to the NHL postseason, it's like one of the best products ever when you're watching it. Yeah.
But I also think that when you have 2 quality teams that just are going at each other, like we saw last night between Boston and Colorado. I'm like, this is great for the regular season. We need more of this. It's unfortunate that, it's in every sport. You're going to have one team that might be better than the other, or two teams that suck, and you force yourself to watch through that game. But no. National championship.
Yeah, 97. That was the last time Michigan won the national championship until last night. The Wolverines running right over Washington. 303 rushing yards for Michigan, and they pulled away in the second half. 34-13 ended up being the final. Blake Corum scoring again. He led all of FBS with 27. He had a rushing touchdown danger in each of the 15 games this season. Washington quarterback Michael Penix, that was not a good night for him. He was intercepted twice. And for those who care, Georgia is the betting favorite in 2024.
You're going to bet against Blake Corum being something in the NFL. I know size-wise he's not your prototypical back, but man, there's something about that dude's grit that I just love. And he's got some moves, but I just don't see it. Nobody's investing in a running back, especially an undersized running back, early in the draft. But are you going to bet against Blake Corum having any sort of success in the NFL? I can't.
Yeah, I know Bills fans are going to be like, oh! They probably will spend a late-round pick this year on a running back. And maybe that pick would be Blake Corum.
I've got so many questions out of this game. What the future of Jim Harbaugh is, whether or not they'll be asked to vacate this championship at some point down the stretch when they really dig into what was going on. Did Penix hurt his draft stock with his performance? I mean, I thought it was still a gutty performance. He wasn't right, but he certainly didn't play his best game. And, man, it would have been more of a game if Washington in that first quarter knew what they were doing defending that run. I mean, they made the adjustments, and the run game kind of started to slow down a little bit for Michigan. But it just too much of Jim Harbaugh's boys for Washington to handle.
John Morant's season for the Memphis Grizzlies only lasted 9 games.
9 times.
After returning from a 25-game suspension, the Grizzlies guard will undergo season-ending surgery on his right shoulder. He's in year 1, danger of a 5-year, $197 million extension. Tonight, 5 games in the NBA, none of which were on network TV. The Knicks hosting Portland. The Lakers are hosting Toronto.
Now, I don't have a ton of investment in the NBA. I know that there are a lot of NBA fans that watch our show on YouTube and listen to us as well every day. But this is one of those things where you saw it, and I'm like, oh, come on, that sucks. I feel terrible. Like, I'm not a big John Morant guy, but everybody has to know that when that guy is playing, the league is better. Like, the NBA is a better product with John Morant on the court, regardless of what he does off the court. He's just such a fun, electric player, and it's a shame that we only got to see him for 9 games.
9 times.
This season.
Yeah, the Western Conference, you look at their standings, Danger, they look upside down too. You were talking about before with
Minnesota's still on top.
Minnesota's on top, Oklahoma City, and then Denver, the Clippers and the Kings. Like OKC seems like they're arriving ahead of schedule, but I can't figure out Minnesota. Like name me a franchise that's never done anything.
Minnesota.
Yeah, KG was there and what?
Get me the F out of here.
Yeah. So and again, I guess early on, as you would say.
Well, Minnesota, the Timberwolves, a franchise built on the same kind of provincial spirit that we have here in Rochester. Kevin McHale, he's a Minnesota guy.
Yeah.
Let's build the franchise around Kevin McHale when he was done playing ball. Like that was everything. Like Kevin McHale was the first Minnesota Timberwolf. He was the guy that made it all happen.
I'm glad you brought up provincial Rochester because that sparked something I want to get back to from the Seth Appert interview. And it's this, and he wasn't going to tell us. It's not his position to tell us. But if you're not familiar with like the Winter Classic or outdoor games, sometimes, like in a team spirit thing, like players will show up dressed up. Like in Seattle, they came in dressed up as guys from the fish market, right?
Yeah.
Seth Appert said the Amherst, they've got kind of a thing going there with the players that would have like a Rochester theme. What would that be?
I didn't want to say it in the moment, but I'll say it now. What are the guys going to roll up in like Rochester American starter jackets from the mid-90s? Because that would be like... Rochester has a fashion week, Gino.
Right.
When I hear Rochester Fashion Week, my mind goes to, all right, here's Vinny from Chili sporting a 1993 Buffalo Bills starter jacket, white T-shirt, V-neck underneath, gold chain, got the horn there, the gold medallion with the horn, smelling of fresh Aqua Velva.
Wow, and paired with Zuba. It's the perfect pairing.
Yeah, that's when I hear Rochester Fashion Week, and I'm not saying that to speak ill of Rochester Fashion Week, but that's where my mind goes when I think of Rochester Fashion.
Well, like, would it be like would you look like Tommy DeVito's agent?
You're right.
Like they have like everybody dressed up like a gangster.
Yeah,
going
if you're in Rochester, and you're showing up in Charlotte, what are you dressed up as? You look like you're an extra in The Godfather, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what would be anybody at the fan Rochester. I was trying to figure out what
Yuri Kulik is not Italian, but he's gonna roll up looking like he's Italian, Gino. That's how you go into Charlotte.
Seth Appert, his hair, that's Italian.
He's got it, yeah.
Italian men love their hair.
Yeah. You know what they need to do? Power move. Roll up with holsters, but not with like toy guns or anything. Olive oil. That's Rochester. Olive oil holsters because they're Italian.
Maybe a little botch.
Yeah, instead of kicking a soccer ball around, go even further. Go do a little pregame botch.
So we go from having fun to this story. Sorry for the segue, Danger. An update on Wander Franco. He's facing a lesser charge after a judge in the Dominican took a look at the evidence, and this is again with the alleged relationship with a 14-year-old girl and Franco allegedly paying the mother for consent. Franco has now been accused of commercial and sexual exploitation and money laundering, but now is accused of sexual and psychological abuse. All that pretty bad. The new charge is considered a lesser offense. Franco would still face between 2 to 5 years in prison if found guilty. Finally, there is one luxury box from last night in Houston. That's where the Michigan-Washington game was last night, the place to be. And I can't figure this out, this foursome here. Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, Travis Scott, and Stephen A. Smith. Danger, of those four, which of the two would you take to dinner?
I think I would enjoy my dinner most if it was with Jordan and Jeter. You're not having a normal conversation because they're legends, but
Stephen A. would steer. Well, I don't know.
Stephen A. is interesting to me, and I respect the hell out of his game. I know he's not for everybody, but if you just take away if you view it through the lens of he is an entertainer, and what he does, what he gets paid to do is entertain you, and he does it with his takes, and he's very self-aware. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's saying, how he's saying it. He's not a credible reporter. It's not like Stephen A. is breaking news, right? He's not a journalist. He's a showman.
One time he was, and they realized I can make more money. He wrote for the Philadelphia Inquirer.
That's right. Travis Scott, I want nothing to do with.
Yeah, I would go with Jordan. My impression of Jeter is just kind of a guy.
But you could have a conversation. I could have a conversation with just a guy. I can't have a conversation with Travis Scott. What am I talking to him about?
I think you could have, if you got the real Stephen A., not showman Stephen A. over dinner. There.
All right, so I'm going with two legends in their sports. And you would go with Jordan and Stephen A.?
I would.
Wow.
I would both agree on Jordan, though.
You just hate the Yankees because you're a Mets guy. You hate Jeter because he's a Yankee.
I don't think Jeter never tells you anything, though. Like, what stories is he going to tell?
I'm not really looking for stories. We're just going to chop it up a little bit.
Chop it up? Like, he's not going to, it's not him.
You don't think I get Jeter to open up about what his life is like after playing or what it was like to win a champ?
Yeah.
I bet you could get him to talk about himself. I bet you could do that. Hell, Jordan did the whole document. The Last Dance was just Jordan talking about himself. You can get him to open up about themselves if you're interested in that.
The opportunity to go to dinner with Stephen A. And I don't know which Stephen A. you would get, whether it's the real Stephen A. or showman Stephen A. or a guy that wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah, I can't hate on it. I really can't because I am a fan. But man, I wouldn't want to pass up having a dinner with Jeter and Jordan. Are you kidding? Yeah, that box was sick.
John Harbaugh was also on as you would expect. I mean, he's not preparing for a game this week, so that timed out perfectly.
Yeah, no, that worked out, and that was nice. And the Harbaughs, I mean, they may as well be American royalty at this point.
Yeah, until, as you mentioned, does that get ripped away?
Yeah, right. Last call next, 866-4FAN if you want to join us. 866-4326 as we say the most dangerous words in all of sports talk radio. We go to the phones. Next on The Fan.
You're listening to The Sports Bar. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You know, we've got familiarity with Buffalo. We got familiarity with that venue. I'm sure they say similar things about us. It's January football. They have a lot of tape to digest and analyze and to prepare for, as do we. And so it's chess, not checkers this time of year. We're really excited about it all.
That's Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin talking about the Buffalo Bills and the matchup of his team taking on the Bills. Coming up here Sunday afternoon, that's a game you'll be able to hear on the Fan Rochester. Our pregame coverage Sunday morning starts at 9 a.m. Welcome back into the Sports Bar. It's last call at 866-4326. Danger and Battaglia at 866-4FAN. Also on Elon's Twitter, at the Fan Rochester. Chris tweeting us, Rochester fashion vibe, faded blue jeans with a V-neck t-shirt, 10-year-old plate stains that just won't come out. Chris, have a little bit of class. I mean, at least throw a pair of Zubas on. Faded blue jeans? Come on. We're talking about Rochester fashion here.
The story we didn't get to, I don't know if you saw this, a Bills fan was shot and killed following the game the other night. His name, Dylan Isaacs, 30 years old. He's from Canada and was walking through traffic, and a car hits him accidentally, and then there's some sort of confrontation and ends in a gunshot.
This was kind of a confusing story because I think there were different reports or different angles, and I think immediately everybody thought that this was related to the game, and it wasn't. It was more of a road rage incident.
Yeah.
But you hate to hear that. As soon as you saw the victim was from Canada, I'm like, oh, God, Bills fan.
Bills fan, right.
But do we even know if that is true? Because, honestly, a lot of Canadians will go down south this time of year.
No.
This is truly a Bills fan?
100%. He was at the game.
Okay.
So this happened outside of Hard Rock Stadium. So, you think about that. You even go to the Blue Cross. Hey, everything's kind of closed down. But if you're walking a few blocks, you never know who might be kind of going through. So whoever, this car that hit him, not related, not a Dolphin fan at the game or anything like that. Right.
Tomorrow on the show, we'll talk more Bills and Steelers from Bills Digest, one of our favorites, the Batavia Daily News. Alex Brasky will be in the Sports Bar tomorrow afternoon at 3:25.
Yeah, and coming up Thursday, we promised this right before the holidays. She's coming back in. You hear her mornings with Perlov. Maggie Gray, Buffalo Bills fan, married to a Rochesterian. Maggie Gray on Thursday.
One of ours.
Yeah.
We've claimed her as ours. Maggie Gray, Rochester's Maggie Gray from Maggie and Perlov will be joining us Thursday afternoon at 4:25. She'll be accepting her 2023 Take of the Year award. And being that she's one of us, she'll have plenty of thoughts on the Buffalo Bills here in this turnaround, this stretch of games that they've rattled off here to get themselves in the 2 seed. A little preview of Sunday's action at Highmark Stadium. If you missed Rochester Americans head coach Seth Appert or Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, you can get both of those conversations and our entire show available wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar, the free-to-download Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.